Welcome back to Quiet on Set. I'm Ewan and I'm joined by Kevin for our coverage of the 82nd Venice Film Festival. We watched most of the films playing in Out of Competition. We watched 9 of the 11 fiction features, 10 of the 16 documentaries, 1 of 4 of the new cinema and music section, 1 of the 4 miniseries, and 3 of the 5 short films. Overall, it's a section we missed by far the most movies, but still, we watched a ton of them. Mostly the documentaries, which are less of our focus and fall onto lower priority for a festival like Venice, at least for our coverage. For the videos of the other sections, for competition, which we completed, Horizonte, which we completed, and Spotlight, you'll find videos for those linked below and within the Venice 2025 playlist. Before we get into it, Kevin, I want to hear from you. There's some changes that were made to this category, some more documentaries to be added. What do you think about those?
Mostly they do documentaries a lot of at Venice, right? But this year they really went all out on it, and you went to more than I did. And I will say that choice might have done more harm than good, because, you know, most of them were late night at Darsena, and that's when I watched the Horizonte movies to then go watch the Spotlight movies the next day. Mm-hmm. That's how I did it. But you went to watch some of the documentaries, and they were mostly empty in Darsena, right? I mean,
yeah, usually you can sense it as less interest for those. And like you say, the press screenings for Horizonte, which do have a public screening usually at 2 and then at 5 in the afternoon in the Darsena, which is the press screening room. Those are there you have the public screening of those sections. In that way, you can attend the press screenings instead of going to public ones by missing some of the out of competition section. But we made the conscious decision to split up movies between the two of us. So I ended up watching a couple of films that even I didn't care for, that much, but yeah. Then but looking at the numbers of just the amount of documentaries, last year there were 22 in total, and we watched 10 of them, and this year there were 31 and we watched 15. I think those numbers are also kind of wrong. Yeah, we kind of stayed in the same ratio, because there's also, the classic docs, which are documentaries about other films. There's 2 of them, but one of them was actually in those classic doc sections, Mega Doc, which would be the very last thing we talk about today. And there was also Kim Novak's Vertigo, from someone who had something in the classic stocks section last year. It's just they split up a bunch of the stuff for documentaries. I don't know if adding the new category for the music one was warranted. I think they could definitely cut back maybe 5 or so of the documentaries next year, and I wouldn't really mind.
In exchange for what?
In exchange for having more screenings, maybe of some of the Spotlight and Horizonte sections, just so I don't miss out on any of those. And I mean, yeah, I don't know what you would change around much by replacing those films. I would just love if they have more late night screenings, more a bit more genre, because we've had that critique of the festival before, that a lot of it feels like dreadful dramas that are very hard on you to just watch back to back, all of the dread,
depressing as hell.
And something lighter. They do have a few of those, but Gunn manages to balance that way better. And they also have way less documentaries, so it feels like it's also different festivals overall. But you want to talk about some feature films?
I really want to talk about the feature films. What is the first one, Ewan? I'm so excited to go talk about them. Let's do this.
Why are you fucking Sesame Street character or something? Why are you so animated? It's 9 features we're going to talk about, and we're going to start with After the Hunt from Luca Guadagnino. This one was initially rumored to be playing in competition. It would make sense, but then Luca was like, no, this one cannot play there. It's one that already has a set release date, and the promotion around it, because it's a Guadagnino film. It stars Julia Roberts, Ayo Edebiri, Andrew Garfield. You do have the excitement already there, so I don't know how much promotional need from potentially being one of the nominees for the Golden Lion. This one comes in at a runtime of 2 hours and 20 minutes and is about a college professor who finds herself at a personal and professional crossroads when her star pupil levels an accusation against one of her colleagues, and a dark secret from her own past threatens to come to life. Also, I think it should be said, trigger warning for sexual assault in this movie. That's exactly like what this ends up being about. I really like this. I didn't love it as much as some other people did. I don't think it's one of my favorites from Luca Guadagnino, but I was particularly excited about Andrew Garfield being in this film because I think he has like a such a range, and I was hoping to get to see a bit more of Ayo Edebiri's capabilities, and then Julia Roberts in the lead role I think just kind of served her purpose like perfectly as well. I thought the movie had a lot of topics we wanted to touch on. Some of the critiques we saw being thrown at it was that maybe none of it feel like it like completely like gets deeper into those and actually has a lot to say on them over just presenting them. But I feel like that was ultimately kind of also the point, that like, you know, there's so much. But yeah, Kevin, what did you think about After the Hunt?
I really liked After the Hunt. I obviously didn't like Queer as much that we watched last year. But I really did like Challengers. I absolutely love Challengers. And now here we get a, you know, I call it in our recap, a layered cake. And because you think, oh, it's a Me Too movie. And it sort of starts out as one. You obviously have the inciting incident, you have the party, everyone is doing their philosophical debates because they're all professors at this university or their assistants and doing their theses and whatever. And then you get Ayo Edebiri contacts Julia Roberts and says like, hey, this happened to me. And from that point on, you think sort of, oh, this is how this movie is gonna go. And at some point, it doesn't anymore, and then it throws one thing at you, and another, and another, and all of a sudden, you get so many topics that are so broad, and that is where some of the criticism is headed towards, which is like, oh, you really aren't discovering all of them. But I think they are. I think this movie definitely warrants a couple of watches to sort of get a grasp at all of them. But I have to talk about Andrew Garfield because I do think he is a very great casting choice. I mean, this is a guy, you know, that when reading BuzzFeed's celeb thirst tweets was just laughing out loud, and he made him very uncomfortable, how some people were like sexualizing him. So the fact that he is the perpetrator in this movie is great casting. Ayo Edebiri unfortunately like deleted the letterbox because of the backlash of After the Hunt, which I did not feel that at all. In fact, Ayo Edebiri, like, this is the first time I watched, you know, her in something, and I was like, this is the first time that I feel like I'm not watching Ayo Edebiri, because she has those characteristics she has in The Bear and other movies, but in this one, I felt like those characteristics were gone, or at least way more subdued. And the score from 9 Inch Nails, Trevor Reznor and Atticus Ross,
Trent Reznor. Yeah,
it is a way more minimal score than Queer or Challengers, because there's a level of uncomfortableness in this movie. There's a lot of ticking. The frame is slightly out of focus, oftentimes in close-ups. Honestly, if we're talking about casting, we also got Michael Stuhlbarg, who sort of steals the scenes he's in. But he's always been that actor. Whenever he pops up, you're like, damn. Like, he's on the same level as Jason Clarke for me sometimes. You know, he comes into a scene.
Me, he's elevated to that status of, you know, he is that sort of character that you're like, oh, who's that? Who keeps popping up and steals a scene. But he's moved past that, like, oh, I know this is him. This is Michael Stuhlbarg. And you can expect something great from him in like a, you know, in a supporting or even less than supporting role sometimes. And here he fully has a like more fleshed out role, who's the partner of Julia Roberts's. and then is also a psychologist. So a lot of like, you know, her behavior and the sort of really long relationship that they've already had, being married, is sort of brought under question because he knows her so well, and like the way a lot of it is like, you know, about what makes you uncomfortable, making others uncomfortable, where's that line. And the whole movie itself, I brought this up to a couple of people after the screening, as which I was surprised. I thought more people would view this movie that way, but it felt like a lot of like the amount of topics that it tackles and the way that it presents them, like you said, with like the really annoying ticking that goes on for way too long. You're like, okay, when does it stop? It like goes to that point of like, okay, where's your line of being bothered by it? And to me, it was like a lot of things that bothered me, and I was like, wait, was that filmmaking that I didn't appreciate, or was it actually filmmaking I appreciate because it makes me uncomfortable in turn, making me, you know, like a whole part of this experiment of the stories it's trying to tell. And I think something else is like, it is about assault and, you know, believing victims and the institution. Who do they side with? Are their own reactions more reactionary to sort of uphold to some sort of cultural, norm, or that they feel like they have to overreact, or do they react adequately? Is it based on, you know, listening to victims, or just because there is an accusation, you like immediately have a prepared response of how you operate in these things? And it's sort of also the normalization, you know, with the way that like shootings keep happening in the States, the way that like they are not really discussed like on an individual level anymore, and you know, this is going into the same direction with Me Too, where like the individual voices end up mattering less and less, and being caught up in that cycle of it all. These characters understanding that and already having, you know, especially with Andrew Garfield, and kind of knowing or feeling like he knows how this is going to play out at every step along the way. It was really fascinating to watch. And then muddying that with Ayo Edebiri's character, who's first, I think, like kind of set up in the way of like, do we fully believe her? I think that is in part, like, you know, still the question for a bit of the film.
I mean, it's more Julia Roberts. It's like, should I fully believe her?
Exactly. And which we won't say like, you know, what motivation is there, but I think that part of it was also very interesting. But then bringing in like a sort of class status as well, and like the sort of opportunities that you get from you know, the nepotism, or just being born into a rich family, and does that have an effect of how people view you, how much empathy they got for you, or does that mean everything you do and say is, you know, like the opportunities just come your way? Like I have to hold myself back from not spoiling specific things, but I think that is really clever how he like weaves that into the story, which I did not expect, you know, for it to go that way, because it poses a bunch of like really uncomfortable questions to like us. How do we view someone like this? I liked it. I thought it's a movie that I think a lot of people talking to them at the festival in Algeria Grid and other people as well kept saying that they kept thinking about this film as well. Like it kind of stuck with them. And they kind of ended up liking it a bit more. They were like us as well
as time went on. Yeah. And I realized that from the beginning. I was like, this is a very late movie. Like it is very hard. Like some people had to write a review straight after going out of the screening. I was like, I see that sort of as an impossible task, because it is so dense. It is so dense because, as you say, Ayo Edebiri has a sort of class status, but she's also in terms of sexuality because she's bi, or that whole thing. So how does society reflect upon that around her? So and obviously we haven't actually talked about Julia Roberts herself, which she's also very good at. She's sort of a snake in this movie, or like at least chameleon-like, you know, because she's very good at hiding some of the things, but some of the things she's confronted with obviously brings something out of her that, you know, keeps the movie going. So I really liked her performance as well. Chloe Sevigny is also in this movie, but she's sort of on the background, as is Andrew Garfield at a certain point in the movie. He really more becomes a ghost in the as the story goes along, and then sort of re-enters it again later in the movie, so people who are expecting a lot of Andrew Garfield don't.
He has a couple really show stealing moments.
And there's a couple of subplots that aren't really invested. Like, for example, Julia Roberts has like an apartment, and it's not really sure why she had that apartment. But obviously, does it matter in the end? Not for me.
No, it's more a setting that it's more a plot convenience that than something thematically for that character. Yeah. No, I don't know if I have much else to say. I think I liked it. I think it's interesting that they specifically, say this takes place in the Yale. And then I was wondering, did they actually film at the Yale? Because it's it's also criticizing
did they?
No, they filmed in Cambridge, at the University of Cambridge for this one.
Okay.
It's also shot on 35 millimeter.
Cinematography is gorgeous as well. Yeah. Like the angles he finds. I
was wondering at times if maybe the reason why some of the focus seems unfocused is just because proficiency with 35 millimeter. I still am not 100% sure, to be honest. I'm just taking it as in it's supposed to be like that. But yeah, I also think that sometimes not acting in a lot of these, both Andrew Garfield and Julia Roberts are eyeing tenure, which would secure them sort of a level of job protection even beyond this, I believe. Even if you're accused, you would still, and that is also something that is kind of in the background, but it slowly becomes less and less the focus, but it very much remains that there is this sort of immunity that they could get from most things that they would do, and that is kind of terrifying that these institutions are willing to protect someone who you can't ever know that someone isn't doing something fucked up to someone else. I mean,
it reminded me again, a lot of people bring it up, but it does remind me of the scene from Killers of the Flower Moon when Leonardo DiCaprio and Robert De Niro are having that conversation in the prison cell, and it's Robert De Niro's they'll forget, it'll fade with time, and some people sort of say, that scene encapsulates the times we live in, and it is sort of re-implied in this movie as well. So that message is always and will always be a strong one.
Yeah, I also think that the way that they play with how Michael Stuhlbarg sees both Andrew and Ayo's character as two that adore Julia Roberts, so it's also playing into those power dynamics. This movie is that's why we say this movie's overstuffed, but in a way that moments like this would be complex. It wouldn't be a perpetrator and a victim, but it would be so many people implicit and complicit in all of this that I found it to be cinematically it was quite riveting. I liked it quite a bit, and her whole virtue ethics paper and that whole storyline also interesting. There's constant
there's a lot.
tension. I didn't like the ending. I did I don't want to obviously not spoiling it here, but I thought that was a bit indulging. Looking forward to what people have to say about it once,
because I think the ending sort of makes people I had my own interpretation ready of what ensued, and then they sort of hand you an answer. And I think some people are oh, but no, I like mine, or hey, that is not what I experienced. So
remember what I told you after the screening? I was this is based on something. And then I looked up and said, no, it's an original screenplay. It's also by the first screenplay by Nora Garrett, I believe. But I just that whole epilogue thing was screaming, this is a chapter in a book. I just didn't feel like it fit. That's why I feel this movie is very much flawed, but I found it still very interesting. I'm at a 7 out of 10 for this one.
I'm at an 8 out of 10. I recognize there are flaws, but it is such a complex movie that honestly on a rewatch it might either go down or up Honestly, it could go both ways. Definitely go seek this one out.
Yeah, on a jury grid, it ended up with a 3.58, which is a pretty good rating, I think, overall. It's not.
Yeah, that's good.
It was quite well received. Mads Mikkelsen is back at the Biennale at the Venice Film Festival with a film that he kind of co-leads. It's called The Last Viking. Kevin, what's the Danish title of the film?
Den Sidste Viking.
And that's the film from Anders Thomas Jensen, who made Riders of Justice, that also starred Mads Mikkelsen, and he also wrote, I believe, Kingsland, The Promised Land, Bastarden, which we really enjoyed.
Three titles
for it. And this one is about Anker, who is released from prison after a 14-year sentence for robbery. Anker's brother, Manfred, is the only one who knows where the money from the heist is. Meanwhile, Manfred has developed a mental illness, causing him to forget where the loot is stashed. Together, the brothers now embark on an unexpected journey to both locate the money and discover who they really are. What a nice little, synopsis for this film.
Yeah.
And what this movie is and how the director describes it is that it's a dark fable with a comical undertone about identity. And I would agree, like, it opens with a sort of children's book aesthetic, kind of telling you a fable story, and then you quickly notice, oh shit, this is kind of fucked up. It's like, but then at the core of it is like pretty sweet. It's like very dark. Like I'd say it's that like sort of dark humor that like you would attribute to the Nordic countries and including there also Denmark, that sort of region. I know they don't like to be clumped together like that, but that's just sort of the vibe I'm getting, that is like very direct. And I think it's also what he mentions as well is that people are more than one thing, encouraging a more holistic outlook that is inherently more forgiving and less judgmental, is like beneficial. And through that it looks at all of its characters with a sort of enthusiastic smile and encouraging smile even in their delusions. To me that was a bit much at times. I honestly didn't vibe with like the whole film the whole time. Kevin, you liked it a bit more than I did. Can you sing its praises?
Anders Thomas Jensen honestly makes stories about misfits, right? You have Riders of Justice, where he recruits those three people that are sort of overlooked by society, but together they're sort of a force to be reckoned with in terms of the hacking process and everything. Hell, even The Promised Land or Kingsland or Bastarden, the Bastard, whatever it's called, is about a guy that goes out into the lands in the very, outreaches of the land where nobody really goes, and he tries to make something of his own there. And now you have The Last Viking, the Sidste Viking, and the opening says it again. It's very much, the animation that is playing is about a guy who has lost his left arm, I believe, and then the leader of the Viking group is like, if one person is different, then we're all gonna be different. And then they all chop their left arm off. And that sort of really sets the tone of the movie. But what was really exciting for me was that not Mads Mikkelsen is the lead of The Last Viking, but Nikolai Lee Klaas, who I absolutely adore. Is in Frankenstein as well as the second general. He was also in Families Like Ours from last year, the Winterberg miniseries. And he's also in the Department Q, as it's said in those movies, which I absolutely adore. There are like 4 of them, and they're on Netflix or on Prime Video. And it's again very much a misfit story, and the way these Danish movies always have some dark humor. There's some jokes about the Holocaust. There's some jokes about suicide, and it is very much a very wary movie. It's very cautious where it's going. Well, no, it's not cautious where it's going. It's very much out there. Sorry. And some people will like that. Some people will not like that. For example, I thought one of the jokes about the Holocaust, because these people have personality disorder, and one person has like 20 or like more like, I don't know. He has like 42 personalities, and one of them is like a World War II general that was very much engaged with the Holocaust, and it's like, or I'm gonna go to the Holocaust, and it's like, maybe you should have made him like a World War One general, like a little less controversial figure, because these jokes, they're oftentimes repeating, and it's like, I'm not sort of liking the way this is going.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I really liked it. You didn't.
I honestly got to say that I admire how much it was swinging for the fences and how slapstick it was, but something about it ultimately felt a bit, reductive to these characters, that you just you don't belittle them, you take them who they are, but then I don't get a lot of like comedic actual value out of it, other than I kind of have to turn off my brain a bit too much for this, and I was like, I don't know, I wasn't completely willing to do that, because it wants to have very earnest and real moments as well, paired with the comedy, and it like, not that it doesn't transition well, I think it kind of works, because it sets up that tone of earnestness and something sincere, literally from that animated opening with the children's book, and how drastic they go about it. There's just a lot of violence and a lot of that like comedy is not even sort of, I don't know, put into question as to like why it's so brutal at times. It's similar in Riders of Justice. I think that's just sort of his style of filmmaking, to show these misfits kind of endure a lot of stuff, but you also love them for who they are, because they have so many quirks. And then, like you said, the one guy who has the amount of personality he has is sometimes put too much into the forefront, where he's just like a gag machine and they need to play off of each other. There's sometimes the density of jokes is a bit too much, which works because often it's also the other like more normal characters just reacting off of their ridiculousness, but it just gets to a point where it's slightly too much. But what we didn't say is like that they basically the premise, they want to get the money back, but to reassemble them, they do have to plan, because Manfred's different personality, every time someone calls him Manfred, he like flips out, and he's John Lennon now, and they have the brilliant idea to bring the band together with other schizophrenic people who would have different personality or multiple personality disorders to reunite the band. It's like a wacky plan, and ultimately like that's not what this movie is about. It's about two brothers reconnecting with the shared trauma they have from their past. Also, that didn't work 100% for me, but I think the movie was really well made. It was well acted, with two great actors in the two lead roles. I just didn't find the tone. I didn't really mesh with it that much. And it's also the willfully forgetting cinematic amnesia that is like selective for these characters. It is to me pretty laughable at times, and when it's taken as something serious and paired with trauma, I don't know. It's not really for me.
I agree that this movie is either a bit for you or not for you, but there is a certain bar of quality,
yes.
And that is just due to how the Danish Film Institute works, because they're like very selective with their who actually becomes a director, becomes an actor, because even in the Last Viking, you have sort of the handful of actors that Anders Thomas Jensen always uses. Most of the people that were in the Riders of Justice or in other Danish movies reappear in this one. And if you don't know how the Danish Film Institute works, like only 5 directors actually pass their film schools, and like every year, like even the screenwriters are very selective of how many people actually get those jobs. So because they have like a very high bar of quality. So while not every movie might hit as hard as, let's say, Another Round, you'll always get at least a very qualitative movie from Denmark, and The Last Viking is another one of those, in my opinion. So I gave it honestly, I'm gonna give it a 7.5 out of 10. The more I think about it, they stick to landing because when the ending, like when the climax happened in the ending, like people were applauding the theater in our press screening.
They liked it a lot, yeah.
And the setup is very funny when Nikolai Lee-Klaas calls Mads Mikkelsen Manfred, and he yeets the hell out of the scene literally sometimes. It's very, very funny, but indeed the second, like the middle part, is indeed a bit, looking for its own rhythm, but I did like it overall.
It's got a like charming set of characters that are like supporting roles. It just becomes like a one location film a bit too much when it loses a bit of that dynamic and then relies too much on, like we said, like the Holocaust jokes just being repeated over and over again.
And the Beatles
and the beat, all of that stuff, like them playing songs and just doing whatever they want, and like obviously not knowing the songs but thinking they are the people. Like it's pretty funny, but then I gave it a 6 out of 10. Jury Grid liked it a bit more. They averaged around a 3.42, which is pretty good. That means that like most people were like 3.5 and above, and then a couple that dragged it down, like me. Francesco Farino has almost become like a staple for the Venice Film Festival to us. He's at least in one of the films every year, and this year he was in El Maestro from Andrea Di Stefano, a tennis movie that was very hotly anticipated by Kevin, as he's a tennis instructor. This one is set in the late 80s and tells the story of a former tennis player with a mediocre career who finds himself for the first time to coach a shy boy who carries on his shoulders all the weight of his father's expectations. From tournament to tournament, the student and teacher learn that on the field, as in life, you cannot hide and must play without fear to the last ball. Now again, if you're looking at this film through the eyes of a tennis coach, which we got here with Kevin, I provide looking it through the lens of someone who shares the nationality with Roger Federer, and I think that should also have some value. But I'll let you start with this one. How accurate is the tennis, and is the movie any good, Kevin?
Excuse me, there's also another Swiss legend called Stan Wawrinka. I'll put some respect.
I'm sorry. I'm Stanis. I'm very sorry.
Most great sport movies do two things right. They balance the sports side very well, and they balance the dramatic side very well. This one does both, struggles a bit more in the dramatic side of things because there are like two storylines that I feel like they should have picked either one of them. Like, stick with one, drop the other. But for the rest, it is a very enjoyable movie as we see this duo go out on basically a road trip, doing all these tournaments because his dad has to work hard and he cannot, the son has reached a certain level, the dad can just not accompany anymore. So that's why he hires Pier Francesco Favino to be like, hey, you need to make my kid win these national tournaments and not just these local ones. And they struggle. And so it's very much a underdog story, something we absolutely love in sports movies. Movies where, the guy is good is sometimes very boring. And this one isn't. Also very sexy at certain moments, as Pier Francesco Favino is sort of flirting with women the entire time. It
almost becomes a French
especially
movie.
Other female, which is where some of the comedy comes from, and it's very funny, especially in the beginning. But I've talked enough as a tennis coach. I know what I'll say. The tennis is pretty accurate.
Right.
It is very much very big swings. But that was just how tennis was played in the 80s. It's not as compact and taking time away from your opponent. Like, that wasn't a thing in the 80s. It was very much offensive focused. You had to focus on your attacking, serve and volley. And the kid who Pier Francesco Favino is training is sort of a baseliner who, funnily enough, everyone is a baseliner now, like everybody. So you're sort of visiting tennis from a lost time, so to speak. But anyway, Ewan, I've talked enough.
No, it uses just tennis as this metaphor for life, which is beautiful. You always have these sports movies that are like, at one point, if they want to have a cheesy, chilling moments for some of the sports fans, they go like, why do you play the sport? Why is it so important to you? It's like, well, there's nothing in life other than this sport. And it's like, this is not what this movie is. It's like kind of maybe finding out that like you've tried to become something that is solely based on success, and then growing up is learning that you actually grow from mistakes, from losing, from different perspectives. It's also a film about like showing up. Like you said, there's two storylines for Pierfrancesco Favino. One of them is like being someone who is in who has left his family, who's an absent father, and he's living under the guilt of that. And the other one is issues like with just, I think it's just drinking.
Alcohol,
right?
drugs,
is it drugs?
sex,
yeah. It's just like an addiction to whatever he can have to like numb himself out in a way. He's like very much put down that cool persona which he's like comfortable in without still being that person. And then it also is like his journey in a way to like take accountability and make amends in places where he can't make amends because the stuff that is completely broken. Then it's looking forward and finding those connections where you can contribute to someone else's life, which isn't always your immediate family, but also as a coach. And I think like at one point you could very easily fall into the line of like the dad is like putting so much pressure on his kid because he's working so hard to like kind of vicariously live through, well, not really vicariously, because he's just also suffering under it because it's so tense. It's like so spelled out, because if you have the like the thing for success, then you'll be successful because we worked so hard, so we gotta get there. But then it's also realizing, oh, you might just be shit and that could be it as well. And like living in that reality, like it's a lot of things of that you would sort of coming of age pairing with a sports movie that I think by the end of it, of course no spoilers, this movie is way more a coming of age movie than it is a sports movie to me. And I found that like transition kind of beautiful, because it starts out with like, as much as it's the focus of this kid's life is tennis, and then it still remains that, but like other things become important. Really like, you know, charming. It's Pierfrancesco, who's just like, I don't know, has a persona that I could watch for like hours, even if he did the most boring shit. It's the type of movie that has you know, you get introduced to a character who, you know, he has history with, and then they share a look and you get so much out of it. And like those are the moments that we like live for in these movies, that just like you can feel someone's emotions even though you don't know nothing specific about what happened maybe yet, that get filled out, but like you can still feel it. And there's a lot of these moments in El Maestro, so thumbs up from me.
Thumbs up from me as well, for both the tennis and the movie.
Lovely.
Oh, actually, shout out to Clotilde, who gave me like this sticker. They handed out. It's probably not going to focus, but...
Yeah, Elmo is too dominant on the camera. He's like, no, you don't take the focus off of me.
Oh, wait, is that why?
Here, okay?
Is that why? Wait, if I put it in front of me and then do this, focus? No.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, you'll see it out of focus. Yeah, we both ended up with a 7 out of 10 for this one, and our jury grid basically had like a 7 out of 10 for it. No, a 7 out of 10 for it. Yeah, no, sorry, that's what I was saying. God damn it, I'm already losing it.
He's leaving this in.
it gave the same rating as After the Hunt, with a 3.58 for Il Maestro on our jury grid.
On to the next movie, which is...
In 1977, Tony Karitzis, a former real estate developer, puts a dead man switch on himself and the mortgage banker who did him wrong, demanding $5 million and a personal apology. That's the latest film from Gus Van Sant, called The Dead Man's Wire, that is, yes, based on some true events from the late 70s. It stars Bill Skarsgård, Dacre Montgomery, Colman Domingo, and Al Pacino. And this one's just so much fun. It was one of the films at the Venice Film Festival that, like, you know, rejuvenated us, gave us a bit of energy. They were like, you know, it's a pretty serious movie and what's happening about like someone being kidnapped, but the way it is portrayed is continuously incredibly funny.
Like you said, sometimes at these festivals, because we have these dramatic, depressing as hell movies, you sort of need a movie that keeps giving you fuel to last the festival, and Dead Man's Wire was definitely one. I mean, everyone on our jury grid saw this one, so I think everybody came out re-energized for the rest of the film festival, as we did. Very stacked cast as well. You know, Al Pacino sort of plays this older, the hostage's father, and it's very much like an old father that's like, I don't care what really happens with him. You can't touch me, even with my son. And that's where some of the comedic elements obviously rise when Bill Skarsgård calls him because he wants an apology from him directly. You also have Coleman Domingo, who is playing a very suave DJ named Fred Temple. Just how cool is that name? Especially when Coleman Domingo says it in his recordings because he's a radio DJ. And you have Bill Skarsgård, who is absolutely unhinged. And as we know from other movies, such as It, he can play a very unhinged person. He even does, at some points in the movie, the Pennywise looking at different things with his eyes thing. And it's like so unsettling. And then you have Dacre Montgomery, who is a 30-year-old person, but is playing a 56-year-old. That doesn't really get translated well into movie, I thought, because even though you're seeing the real footage at the end, which really makes you wonder, because during the movie you're wondering like how hard did they dramatize this thing, how much powder that they add to the story, but it's very much the actual thing as you see in footage that is played at the very end of it, and it's brought in this very old school filmmaking way by Gus Van Sant, who is mixing sometimes media with the actual scenes. And perhaps the only thing that I would have liked more is some more conversation between Dacre Montgomery and Bill Skarsgård, because they are sometimes doing a lot of time jumps. And, these guys are supposed to be in there, like entire days with each other. So we don't really get as much conversation between the two of them as I would have liked, which is probably because we don't actually know what conversations they have had with each other. Like that probably hasn't been, released.
Yeah, it's also their dynamic becomes pretty quickly something of like they understand the situation they're in. So it's not like you could have very, very chippy back and forth, similar to like in Begonia, where you're holding someone hostage. And there, like the dynamic is way more at odds with each other, because like consistently the guy is described by like the cops and everyone around it. He's like a decent, not the guy he's taking like as hostage, but Bill Skarsgård's Tony is described as like an upstanding good person, and the way that this is being portrayed is like, oh wait, who's the actual bad guy in the larger picture? It's like, no, you still got someone who's doing a super crazy thing, but it's also looking at it through the lens of like not belittling him as a like biggest idiot, but lunatic. Also he's like fumbling, and a lot of it is like conversational, like situational humor, like the way that the media plays into it and how they coverage. There's also Miala, who basically comes in and takes over sort of reporting on the story, which I thought like was a bit something that, I don't know, didn't need that sort of inclusion. That was an offshoot story, offshoot like side plot that wasn't really that important overall. But a lot of like the comedy comes out of like, letting a scene maybe play a bit longer and start a bit earlier, and there's so much comedy in that where you're just watching it and it's just like, it's kind of ridiculous, and there's something true to the core of it as well. Like Gus Van Sant also talked about in his director statement that they began making the film in November 2024, and in a short time as the world changed around us, we noticed unsettling parallels between our story and unfolding global events. This made the project feel both timely and uncomfortable. I hope the film doesn't cause too much distress, though I recognize that we are living in deeply troubling times. I felt that as well. I was like, I didn't think this movie had the intention of having like a big statement behind it. It felt like a pretty silly, like, this is a story, but also movie, fuck the mortgage company in a way, right? We fuck these big institutions, but then it like also is so timely in a way that like all of this pent up frustration is coming to a boiling point as we see the larger repercussions of the decisions that were made in the 60s and 70s, and that are just like, worsened by current leadership. And like, then I was like, okay, cool, I guess we can both have fun with this and still have something to say. I was like, that is really impressive. Gus Van Sant nailed that. I think it's like I also before the festival rewatched Good Will Hunting for the first time in a few years, and I was like struck by how many incredible lines are in that movie, how much heart that movie has. This is obviously very different. He still has it. He still got it. Like, that energy is still there. I was really impressed by the filmmaking.
I mean, his last movie was in 2018, if I recall correctly, which was Don't Worry, We Won't Get Far on Foot. And that 2018, so it has been a while.
Yeah.
But I'm sort of glad he's back. He didn't do everything perfectly for me. Like, sometimes during the movie, I was wondering, like, what would David Lowery have done with this story? Because it at times feels very The Old Man and the Gun-esque, especially in aesthetic. And sometimes I've seen a better version of this movie with Johnny Toe's Breaking News, because that's also very much a hostage and perpetrator versus the media and the police type of movie, where they're sort of talking about the propaganda and side of things. But overall, it's still very successful in what it tries to do, and its parallel with the real world are quite obvious. I mean, you haven't really mentioned it, which is Luigi Mangione, because you haven't mentioned it. Do you want to mention it or not?
No, that's fine. Yeah, you can mention him. Yeah.
No, you can mention him, because you were thinking it. Yeah. I really wasn't.
Well, I actually haven't thought about it since then. I was like, I'm surprised that you brought him up now.
Because the director named him specifically also at the press conference.
He did. I don't know, that's sort of the pent-up frustration that, like, here it's in the same vein of, like, he wants to get something. Well, I don't know what Luigi wanted, but here he wants something specific. He wants an apology. He wants to be paid back, because we haven't even said yet what he's so mad about. But essentially, he has, like, bought land, and he has to pay back a loan, and he feels like they are holding out on, like, him actually doing something with the land, that they are, like, behind that. I
believe he was building a mall on that specific land.
Yeah, and he had, like, everything in order, and then he accuses them,
like, ready to go,
and then it was stopped, and he still had to pay back the loans that he still has to pay
even
out.
Though they weren't, like, written agreements yet, they were verbal agreements, so that's why he's also extra frustrated.
It's a lot of that, like, hey, the little man gets fucked over by the institution. That shouldn't be the case. This is him acting out. Do people resonate with him on a larger scale? And what actually ends up happening to this person who does something like this? How is he going to get punished for something that we clearly see as illegal and wrong, and under the other ways of that other wrongdoing that someone can do under the law, institutionalized as well. So people, like, were really cheer-worthy when, again, this is based on something real. If you don't want to know, then I guess skip out. But, like,
and again, the real footage at the end is absolutely insane as well.
Yeah, but the mortgage company kind of default, like, going out of business, and, like, people were cheering for that to no end. The press conference, like, I was cheering as well. I was like, fuck them. There's a lot of, like, it ends with, like, the revolution will not be televised and all of that. So, like, there's definitely, like, a bit of energy behind it, and we can see that reflected in a bunch of movies. Like, No Other Choice felt similar in that way, where we can resonate with, like, some extremist mentalities that have the implication, sometimes the literal violence alongside it. I mean, we don't have to mention recent events, but that's, like, that's not going anywhere, right? It's just causing more harm. And the question is, like, if someone gets so harmed in a way, like, that's the only way out. Even if in No Other Choice, for example, it's just him dropping down to middle class, and he can't accept it.
Desperate,
he's so desperate he can't be rich anymore. It's like, well, that's the value system that he's placed on himself and the world and his family. And yeah, there's a lot of that. There's also a miniseries that's currently in the works with John Hamm. There was a podcast they did in 2022 about this, and apparently by MGM Plus they greenlit it earlier this year in April. So there's another adaptation of this maybe coming. I don't know if it's actually being done, but
so that probably will be a Prime series.
Yes,
as it's MGM.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah, and like you said, like the ending clips of actually showing what was publicly, sent out, and them just being, like, kind of nervous, cut the feed early because they didn't know what he was actually going to do, and, like, that in this movie, and how it's so like it's so beautifully awkward as well. Like a lot of it is just a bunch of men standing in front of a camera, just one guy with a shotgun. It's so ridiculous. There's also a guy who won the Pulitzer Prize for
yeah,
won some water. There's one guy who won the Pulitzer Prize for a photo that he took that is really iconic. With you've probably seen it, but yeah, this one gets a whole lot of recommendation from me. I gave this an 8 out of 10. Yeah, liked it a lot.
I gave it a 7 out of 10, but I called it the hardest 7 out of 10 for me at the film festival. It's just made it into my top 20 of the film festival. But so it's really entertaining, but actually, as we know, we discussed more and more, this movie also has a lot to say. So I hope it does well, because if I recall correctly, this movie had like a shit ton of executive producers and like producers in the beginning of this movie as well, like a whole bunch of names on the screen. So I don't really know the financials of this movie, but I do hope it's one that does well, either in its streaming deal negotiations or at the actual box office, if it gets a wide release at all. Hopefully.
I just checked this on Letterboxd. There's so many executive producers on it. I don't know what's up with that. Exactly. I don't know why.
I remember that screen specifically because like bam, full on names.
It's also
like, whoa,
no one like that stands out that like there's no celebrity that at least I'm noticing here. So
like this is very much, I feel like a Gus Van Sant that went around and asked in a lot of favors. I
mean, it still doesn't have a poster on Letterboxd. It's still just like a still from the movie. So hopefully this does get a bit of a wider release. It's playing at the Zurich Film Festival as well, but that's with most of the other coverage. This might be the one that's not playing, and I'm saying it's playing at the Zurich Film Festival. On our jury grid, it ended up getting a 3.71, and like you said, everyone ended up catching this, so that is very positive that no one is like dragging it down for really not liking it. So you got a solid film here. I can't say the same about the next movie.
Oh god, do we have to?
I know we have
we
have to.
Shit.
Let's talk about In the Hand of Dante, the latest film from director and writer-director of this as well, Julian Schnabel. This is a handwritten manuscript of Dante Alighieri's poem, The Divine Comedy, makes its way from a priest to a mob boss in New York City, where it is taken by author Nick Tosches after he's asked to verify his authenticity. Now there's also been a version of not the Divine Comedy but this film that ended up leaking online before the festival. I think it already was like under a bunch of controversy for some of its cast members like Gal Gadot and Gerard Butler. It's also weird that this film played at the same day that the voice of Hind Rajab plays, but we can leave that in the background, like, you know, for the actual discussion of this film. It's a movie that is 2 hours and 40 minutes long. It is based on the novel from Nick Tosches of the same name, and it basically features a fictional version of this author in this movie. This also has a long history of, like, you know, its production, because at one point Johnny Depp bought the rights to it in the early to mid 2000s, and the actual author Nick Tosches, he died in 2019. I wanted to read you a bit from the director's statement as well, because I think it's giving you the vibe of what this movie is. If there is only the eternal present, then all time runs simultaneously, and there is no reason why a kid from a family of gangsters couldn't be the reincarnation of Dante Alighieri. That's just like, you know, it's just it's okay, that's cool, multiverse or whatever, cool. Everything is happening at the same time. I don't know what that actually like means specifically, but this is a story that features like dual characters. So we have a cast that plays both you know, Oscar Isaac, who plays
a present and past version,
exactly, who plays Nick Tosches, but he also plays Dante Alighieri, about like 700 years ish apart. And then this movie is part like mob heist movie, which is actually pretty exciting, and then it's just like full on crime and messy and murderous and just vile for the sake of being vile. And then there's also Martin Scorsese yapping, which was like, I was never had the feeling of like I don't want to listen to more of Martin Scorsese talk, but he has like 3 scenes in this movie, and by the third one I literally wasn't paying attention anymore. So like it was pretty hot. Like that's crazy, because I love the guy. So I thought this movie was a complete and utter mess. It was way too long. It also had the thing of like, you know, different aspect ratios and looks for the different times, which is, you know, it's fine. But it also has an abundance of characters that are so like weirdly used. There's the like pining woman, the library like lady who just like comes into the story a bit later on, that's just like completely flabbergasted. There's like a love story that doesn't get developed. There's a murderous Gerard Butler who also in another scene then it's just like the Pope. It's like, it is like the most like probably
the Pope with the Scottish
it's a very
accent,
fun like drunk movie, you know, if you're like what the fuck is happening, but it's not a very good movie. But Kevin, what do you think of it?
I guess the only interesting thing in this movie for me is the verification or like the authentication of this thing, right? And that happened in the first half, where they are maybe a bit in the second half, where they have to go to museums, where they have to, you know, dive into documents to verify the authentication of this, you know, poem from Dante. And there is some violence that comes along with that, and you have Gerard Butler being very mopey about that as well. It's like, I have to fucking clean these people up again. It's like, we're leaving, and then also Oscar like, no, why did you do that? And that's the more interesting thing for me. You know, Gal Gadot and Oscar Isaac have a romance that you said was underdeveloped. I would say it's undercooked. It's raw. It's fucking raw.
Okay,
like I would not eat it. Like it gave me salmonella.
Yeah.
That's how bad it was. And even though they're at the end, like, oh my god, we're reunited again. I don't care about spoilers. Like even when they're at the end, like, oh my god, we're back.
It's also so funny.
Years.
It's like it sets up their love, and then earlier in the point, like there's also a flashback within like the like earlier time period, where it's Dante, like a solid like I think I'd say fifth or sixth of that story is just a flashback itself as well, about like Dante's childhood and like his obsession with a certain girl, and then it later says like he wrote a bunch of stuff about her but never about his wife, which is played by Gal Gadot. And then it like ends with like a match cut of them like present and past for these reincarnations, and I think it wants to say something like, oh, it's all connected, and I don't know what sort of delusion he's under. There's also, I think at one point, didn't they bring in a character that felt like it was sort of like almost like a Mephisto character as well? I don't know, man. This movie had like so many ideas. You also have Jason
Momoa.
Oh,
you also have Jason Momoa.
Yes,
you have Malkovich.
He's just like he's supposed to be working for like an Italian mafia, but he just, I don't know, he looks a bit out of place, I gotta say. Like he is,
I mean, you know, at some point he goes to a person that Oscar Isaac just contacted, and he's like, hey, sit on my lap, I'm gonna explain some shit to you,
don't see
why
him
you
again.
Shouldn't do things to him. And it's like so weird. And then there's guess what though, the movie ends up in Venice. So that's why it's at the Venice Film Festival, right? Because if you have your story set in Venice, you're automatically getting in. We also should talk about Julian Schnabel, because I have a love-hate relationship with at Eternity's Gate. I haven't really watched any of his other movies. I think
I haven't seen any of his other, The Diving Bell and the Butterfly.
Diving Bell and the Butterfly, which is his magnum opus, it should be said. And this one is far from being his magnum opus. But the thing that stands out to me the most, besides the whole actor and plotline thing, is you have his style. Julian Schnabel very much had his own style with the fleeting camera and being very artsy, fartsy at times. I don't like using that sentence, but it sort of is applicable to this movie, because it could be a heist movie, but Julian Schnabel's sort of way of filming gets in the way of that. It wants to be this very poetic movie Julian Schnabel's vision and filmmaking should add to, but in this one really doesn't. And as you say, like Scorsese is in 3 scenes where they also are talking in this old Englishy way, which should be, I guess, the Italian way of speaking, and is sort of translated, but also doesn't work. And as you say, I love listening to Martin Scorsese, right? By the third scene, I was so out of it. I just did not understand what they was talking about.
Yeah.
It is not good.
No, it's not good. And what he also says in the director's statement is that the goal is to become the poem. Dante and Nick achieved that. He's still working on it. And everything I have to say is in my art. And this is very much, this feels like very much a work in progress that is messy. That is just a bunch of ideas like clumped together, unfocused, unfortunately. That ultimately with a poem, I think if I want a poetic poem-like movie, then it evokes an emotion out of me. Like, it doesn't need to be in the text that it's structured like a poem, but it can also be in the subtext. Like, a poem can to me, or like the poetic nature can to me be very visual too. Like, for example, Perfect Days, I feel like is almost like a poem as a movie. Like, that's a movie where it like works.
And I guess to cap this all off, literally also the movie, the way it caps off, there's this very cheesy part with floating heads. Honestly, do you remember the scene in Thor Love and Thunder where the whole internet was talking about that one like floating head, like, everyone, this looks awful. The credits, that's sort of the same thing, along with this version of a song I very much love, right? I love Nick Cave and Into My Arms. I love that song. But it
ends again. We don't care about spoilers, but it's Gal Gadot and Oscar Isaac's character being in both scenes in each other's arms, and then the credit song is Into My Arms. It's funny how like there's nothing about it that is in the subtext. It is all just like people like Scorsese as well, telling things at you, not for you, literally at you. I
gave it a 4 out of 10.
Me too. And from all of these out of competition films, and like just overall, it was the lowest rated film on our jury grid with a 2.25 average, which is only high because Ben from Discussing Film was quite excited for this one and ended up giving it like a 3.5.
It was his most anticipated.
Yes. And everyone else in our jury grid did not like this. Some even rated it lower than we did. Because like there's some filmmaking behind it that is like, it's not all bad. There's some decent actors, some horrible ones in there. It balances out. I think like a 4 out of 10 is pretty fair for this movie.
And again, this movie has unfortunately leaked online because like it only debuted at Venice and it has 2.4K logs, which for a movie at Venice is way too much.
Yeah, it would be around like less than 1K. If it premieres at TIFF, then sometimes it goes to 1K, perhaps, 1.5. Yeah, sometimes 2, depending on how many. Yeah, at most. Yeah.
I mean, I think it already reached 1K before the time it actually premiered. So, yeah.
Well, Well, if you're interested, I guess it's out there. Like, I don't know. I guess if it, I don't.
We don't condone it though. We don't condone it.
No, I also don't condemn it. I'm like, I don't care. Honestly, I'm sorry. Anyways, let's talk about an anime film that premiered at the Venice Film Festival from Mamoru Hosoda, who also made Belle and Mirai and Wolf Children. He's known for having movies that are described to be like very beautiful, because his animation style is a bit different from the typical 2D anime one or the Hollywood standards. He mentions that in his director's statement as well. And this one is basically the story of Amleth, but it's told from the perspective of Princess Scarlet, who, after failing to avenge her father's murder, wakes up in the land of the dead. In this world filled with madness, if she does not achieve her revenge against her nemesis and reach the no-end place, she will become void and cease to exist. Can Scarlet find a way to live at the end of her endless journey? Interesting stuff. It's also a movie that is like, animated and in scope and like that sort of cinematic format, and its visual language, I think, isn't really, can't really be grouped together with like other different animation styles. What I said to you, Kevin, is that like the CGI look is something that is hotly debated in the anime sphere, because often it's like looked down upon. I think people have since come around to it because it also opens the scope of like, you know, the possibilities. It's also something that, you know, it comes in at almost 2 hours runtime, 112 minutes, which is also a rarity for an animated film like this. I mean, it's been in production for 4.5 years. It is visually quite impressive. I don't know if I can give it much more than being visually impressive, having some pretty entertaining fight scenes. That's about like where my compliments would probably run out. Kevin, what did you think?
I was a bit worried. Scarlet was on my most anticipated list of this year. Just the fact that there was an anime movie at the Venice Film Festival. Again, we talked about the fact that we need movies that sort of stand out from the usual, you know, depressing, dark movie that play at the Venice Film Festival. So whenever a movie like this comes along, we're like, yes, something else, something different, at least visually. Maybe not in terms of like emotionally, but like visually. And this movie visually is indeed very stunning. But I was worried when one of the first opening credits was Nippon TV movie. Now I have looked up online, and like it has done some very impressive movies. It has a bunch of Ghibli movies and other movies as from Hosoda himself. But I was worried because it's like TV movie, and you're like, oh, okay. Is it limited in terms of its budget? And sometimes I did have that feeling that it was limited in its budget because there were a lot of shortcuts. In the animation, you need to have shortcuts in terms to make some scenes more appealing, or you have to work harder on some scenes, so you have to do some shortcuts to other scenes. That is just a staple in animation, totally fine. But I did have that feeling way more with this movie than others. I think you did as well.
I honestly came out of it saying like, I don't know if I liked how that looked a lot of the time. I think I didn't vibe with it 100%. Like I know people were saying, oh, this looks amazing. I didn't think that for most of it. What he mentioned as well is like there's like more details. I don't know what he means by like more details, just because there's more pixel density and it's less just like, you know, a cartoonish maybe, that he can focus more on the facial expression, which is something that maybe in anime you do less because you can overemphasize a lot. And this is, I think, like it wants to tell emotional stakes for our lead characters and some of the supporting people. It wants to tell like in close, not in close up always, but like with a depth of expression that reflects the one that they undergo on their journey. But then I always found the scenes where it pulls back and does like action scenes to be the best, and not those emotional moments, because a lot of them like felt a bit repetitive, felt like, you know, because we know the story of Amleth. It is one about revenge, one about getting there and the futility of it all. And I don't think by the end of it I felt like to take anything different from the story. I thought this would be like one of the lesser Amleth stories. Maybe it's just because, you know, a couple of years ago we got the Northman, and I'm like, I'm good. This is the actual one. I don't need to see any other like Hamlet be adapted ever again. I did, like at one point I think they go into like a full dance number as well. It's also like pretty, it's like in that anime style. It has some anime like reality. It has some pretty wacky scenes that I think both of us critiqued that a bit.
And even the dance sequence isn't that, you know, dynamically shot. No. It very much stays on them, which also is an example of, oh, it is a limited thing. Like this movie has a certain richness in its world building. The world building is done very well, and I just don't think it gets matched in terms of emotional resonance, because even in the end it gets dumbed down pretty hard. The plot is like they really just put it out there what the message is, and like it is not subtle at all, which is why I'm wondering like, oh, well, Hosoda is, you know, really known for his mature things in this movie, and this one sort of loses it all at the end, because they really say like, hey, this is the choice this character has to make now. This is the meaning of this movie. But it's also, you know,
he uses these classic stories like with Beauty and the Beast with Belle, and has that like modern twist of an influencer or something. I haven't seen that, but that's the one where I first heard that like he's a visually stunning filmmaker, you know. And then this one
Absolutely.
is a story about a revenge that is just about like the sort of grasp of eternal power, and that doesn't really have anything to do with the revenge tale. And to me, the revenge part was, if you have something interesting with the character there, I'd love to see that process, because it's always individual of like when and how and where it leads to. The other thing made the villain so one-noted, because there's no change in like, it's just pure evil. When I think the Hamlet story is about like understanding that you know, that like an act of violence that would justify revenge, after time maybe the person has become someone different and you've been shaped by your revenge. And like that to me is like, that is so interesting in how like like different decisions and like death affects people completely differently. Like the sort of like hatred is formed, and it goes into nothing of that. Like there was no substance to this film, unfortunately. So yeah,
or at least very little.
I found it to be like, very little to nothing.
Compared to Mirai, we both watched Mirai as preparation for this movie at the film festival, and we were both saying like, oh, the movie, you know, but then the ending hit so hard in Mirai, so hard that I missed that in Scarlet.
Yeah, you can forgive some of the like super anime like cheesy moments if it like manages to build up to an ending that pays off. And yeah, Mirai does that. This movie is like the weakest part of it to me was the ending. And the rest of it, I was like actively during the movie, I was hoping that it sticks to landing, because I was like, all right, I don't know how I feel about this, but I'd love to, you know, be blown away by it. And it never ended up happening. I initially wrote down, I think, like a 5 out of 10 for this one, but I bumped it up to a 6 out of 10. Like, you know, not on the, like, I'm being a bit more.
Yeah, I give it a 7 out of 10. I do still think it's visually stunning, and the world building and the fact that he worked 4.5 years on it, and you can feel the richness in its animation, not always, but most of the time. And I do still think it's a worthwhile watch for anime fans, for people who are a fan of Mamoru Hosoda. So yeah, if you're interested in it, definitely go check it out. If not,
then don't. No, Jerry Greg gave this a 3.31 as well, which you know, there was 1 4-star and the rest was like 3 and 3.5-ish. So don't expect to be blown away by the film, but yeah, like Kevin said, like, if you like anime, then you'll probably have a good time.
Still a good time.
Yeah. Not if you want to see a good Hamlet story or Amleth story. I don't think that's what you're getting here. Orfeo is a very experimental film that premiered at the Venice Film Festival. It's one that mixes media with stop motion, and I couldn't even name all of the techniques because there's plenty of them. And it is about that popular Greek tale of Orpheus and Eurydice. I'm probably butchering how you pronounce that. The synopsis reads: since he was a child, Orpheus has imagined stories about an abandoned villa across the street from his house. A solitary and visionary pianist, during an evening at the Polypus, a club where he plays, he meets Eura's gaze. An unconditional love blossoms between them, but she concealing a secret. Then she disappears. One evening, Orpheus sees her enter a small door on Via Saterna in front of the villa. He follows her, and before the threshold he encounters the Green Man, an enigmatic figure who seems to know the mysterious of the passageway. Once through the door, Orpheus enters a visionary afterlife. Once again, I think some of these synopses do need a lot of work, especially the Italian ones, because there's a bunch of information that does not need to be in the synopsis here. But essentially, it is that story told through the adaptation, I believe, specifically from Dino Pusato's Poema Fumetti, which was written, I believe, in the 70s. At least that's what the director has stated, that's like sort of the inspiration. I found it to be like pretty interesting to see like what he was going for, because he wanted to evoke a sort of dreamlike journey for the viewer. Rather than a traditional narrative, I chose a rhythm that followed the shifting logic of dreams. I shot on 60mm in the studio with a hand-built sets and techniques based on optical illusions. And a lot of those, I think, really come to the forefront, where a lot of it is just we're just entertained by just seeing whatever imaginative sort of look it goes for next. I think as far as like the actual story of Orfeo, I didn't think I was like that interested in that, because it's like that sort of the Italian trademark of like, there's a woman, there's a man, he falls completely in love with her, honestly, on like 2 minutes of screen time sometimes, and then we spend like 2 hours of him just being completely obsessed, and we don't really see like where all of this obsession comes from. Guy just needed something to be obsessed over. And I know this is a really popular, I guess, Greek mythological tale, the one that like ends with him going down to like Hades, to the afterlife, and trying to get her back. As like a human, he's protected by the gods, gets back down, and he's allowed to bring her back if he goes back up the stairs and does not look back. And then it's just a thing where he's like, oh, on the final steps, he's like, oh, gotta peek, and then she goes back down, and he spends the rest of his life going like, no, why did I look back? And I like that take. I was like, I didn't really see that like that much reflected in the story. I think you could do even more with like visualizing that and like telling a cool story about that. But it's been endlessly adapted. I think it's like referenced, and like I looked it up. Apparently, like, you know, for Portrait of a Lady on Fire, people were saying like, oh, it's got some elements of that in there, like inspirations of this classic tale. Yeah, Kevin, what did you think about Orfeo?
I love how you said 2 hours when it's a 74 minutes movie.
I know. I meant in general, for it's a short movie.
Yeah.
It's a short movie, but yeah.
But the vibe in terms of visuals, I very much had to compare it to the 20th Century, 2019 movie from Matthew Rankin. Alessio, who was with us in that screening, or like at least talked to us about that movie, also agreed with me. Like, it very much shared that visual thing. But I totally agree with you. You know, this movie used a lot of technique. I believe like stop motion, animation, rear projection. Like, it does it all. And in terms of that, I can't really say any flaws with it. It's very well done. Cool.
It's very cool. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Story left me cold.
Yeah, me too.
That's it. Yeah. I really don't have anything else to say.
I kind of have to, like, I don't know, it's cool if you just leave it on in the background, not listening to the story, and just seeing the different ways of like represent. I think also the production design.
Honestly, you know what? I think this movie would work way better as a silent film with some piano music.
Yeah, and he even is. He says like a pianist, right? So you could like transition into something truly experimental.
This would work better as a silent film.
But the thing is, like, whenever it does break into, you know, using actual actors, it loses some sort of that universality of this tale which it tries to evoke. And I think we as humans always gravitate towards, you know, if there's a novel adaptation, if there's a like a movie version of it, when we now read the film, we picture those actors, and it's kind of the same thing. If you want to tell a story like this, then we go back, like, and obviously they go back and forth, you know, that's supposed to that's what's supposed to be happening. But I think if we truly were to go for that dreamlike thing, it might have even been better if you like used no humans at all. But I thought it was really impressive technically. I liked it quite a bit.
Me too.
We both gave it a 6 out of 10. And yeah, that's about that. What we got to say about our film.
Which like technically it's a 5 out of 5, but story wise it's the 1 out of 5. Yeah. And that literally amounts to a 6 out of 10. That's what I think about this movie, yeah.
Let's talk about Chien 51 from Cedric Jimenez. It is set in near future Paris that is divided up into 3 zones that separate social classes, and no one can escape Alma, a predictive AI that has revolutionized law enforcement. When Alma's creator is assassinated, Salia, a top agent, and Sem, a jaded cop, are forced to work together to solve a murder that may expose the dark secrets of the systems they serve. This one was the last film that screened at the festival, like a premiere at the festival. It's a, like, you know, movie that I think wouldn't ever be considered to be playing in competition. This is definitely one that was just there, for the public to have like a sci-fi crime thriller there. And I think they should have more of these playing in out of competition, honestly. This one's based on a novel from Laurent Godet that came out in 2022. I was wondering if it's like older, but then no, it definitely is taking from the more recent developments of AI and what that future might hold. You could also think that, it's a French movie, it's a French sci-fi movie. It might be like 2.5 hours long. No, actually only 100 minutes long. It stars Gil Lelouch and Adel Arakopoulos, who I'm always like, when I look at that last name, I'm like, oh no, I cannot. Adele, my friend. But yeah, this one is very much concerned about what sort of role the police plays in all of this. The director has made 2 other films that were like about police. Bac Nord and Novembre also played at the Cannes Film Festival. I don't know if Bac Nord played there as well. It's about like, does it enable this sort of like what's the function of tracking down criminals, and what will maybe the role play of something that is not human, and like when you bypass that, like do you still get to justice, or is there something lost in it? And I think I was quite entertained with this film. Kevin, what did you think about it?
I had this movie in my most anticipated because the premise sounded so interesting. But my concern was, will they get the budget to sort of pull such a movie off? And they do. The budget is very much on the screen in terms of filmmaking. Cedric Jimenez is a very solid director. But at the end of the movie, I just couldn't stop wondering when this movie have been better as an animated movie. Because in my head, I was just stuck with Mars Express. And that was such a surprise last year. And while watching this movie, I just couldn't stop thinking about Mars Express, how similar it was to Chien, 51. And, Gilles Lelouch, Adel Exarchopoulos do a wonderful job. I mean, they're in a better movie this year than last year with L'amour ouf.
Yeah,
that movie.
Yeah, that one wasn't good.
Filmmaking wise, L'amour ouf wasn't bad.
A lot of money thrown at it. Yeah.
Exactly, a lot of money thrown at this, a lot of money thrown at this. But in the end, again, I just couldn't stop wondering, wouldn't this movie have been better as an animated movie? There's also, the romance between the 2 leads, which
it's a bit awkward.
Rather left me cold as well.
Yeah. Well, I wrote down at one point in my notes, literally, I was like, French equals naked. So it's like, at least it needs to.
Oh yeah,
at least one, because you wonder, is this going to be a sex scene? It's not just going to be a sex scene. It's going to be like an actual nude scene as well, and you can expect that, I guess. I've also found it peculiar that like it takes place at like New York's Eve, and it is like a love day as well, which I wondered, is it like Valentine's Day? But I don't know. It had a couple of like interesting world building moments that I think if you go a different route of like how you show it in animation, I think this is like something that works both ways. It works if you have enough money like this to tell it like a story like this, but it also would be great with animation, especially because I think that there are quite a few action moments. I think action is always just something that you can do a bit easier in animation, because you can bend reality a bit more, and here it's always just like shooting and a bunch of them missing over and over again, but also not missing, not always missing, and it paints a kind of bleak world where I think the central thing of like figuring out who the bad guy is not that difficult. I think it's very obvious, and then it becomes way more about like spending time in this world. What is it like if the world or a city would be separated into 3 zones, and how you would escape out of that. I think the whole game show aspect of like, there's a game show that is consistently on that like promises you education in one of the higher zones. What I found interesting as well is like that everyone is living in like zone 1 and 2, and basically basically only the government is in zone 1, or like the police, like some of the governmental institutions, and maybe the mega rich are in zone 1, but the rest don't. And a lot of people who live in zone 3 also have to, you know, go to zone 2 to work, because zone 3 is really just like almost like a shithole to even live in, that they all like kind of despise. But there's also sort of solidarity that forms. Like, there's a lot of world building that is done. I also like the counter movement, which brought up this, led by Louis Garrel, who's also someone who pops up often in a lot of French movies, similar to Adele, you know, is in a ton of them. And same goes for Roman Dury, who's in a lot of like films that premiere at Cannes and Venice. I think that's like exclusively what he does nowadays. Just, you know, attend these festivals, and he plays the like mayor of the town. Like you said, the world building is done well. It also has some pretty good production design, and you're working with some of the most talented French actors that are currently working. So you got like a you know, a formula for success. I think the story ultimately is quite predictable and doesn't really say much about this world, or the world we be heading into. And I just wish there was a bit more of that. Like that was, or like it be more thrilling. I just found it to be quite cheesy by the end of it. Obviously something specific that we won't mention was like almost made me laugh because it was so cheesy.
For me, it was also on the same level as a movie called The Kitchen, which was a Daniel Kaluuya co-directed movie, because it's also in that sort of same vein. You have this lower neighborhood called The Kitchen. Meh. Yeah,
no, it was unfortunately a bit disappointing. I gave it a 6 out of 10. I think you still have a higher rating for it.
I honestly would go to a 6.5. Well, like
right. It's coming down to me. I mean, again, this was at the very end of the festival, so it was basically only us and Max and Simon who ended up watching this, and of those 4 ratings, it ended on like a 3.31 or like free-ish movie. It's like, you know, a solid 6 out of 10. That I think that's like about where I'd stop recommending a film. If it's for a specific audience that is interested, you'll get what you want out of Chien 51. But yeah, not much more than that. You got the French pronunciation, which I noticed that was a bit off. But anyways, let's stop this review. All right, let's move on. There was also a horror film that played at the Venice Film Festival out of competition called The Holy Boy. I think the Italian title was In the Valley of Smiles, but there's some different translation for the English title. It's by Paolo Stripoli. It's about a PE teacher, Sergio, who moves to Remi, a small mountain village where the people live in unshakable serenity, but soon discovers they're hiding a disturbing ritual. Once a week, the locals are freed of their pain by Holy Boy Matteo, a 15-year-old introvert with the power to heal one's soul by just hugging them. Trying to rescue Matteo from this madness, Sergio unleashes his dark side. I missed this one, Kevin. I gotta turn to you. Like, honestly, I kind of, after you were praising the film, I was like, damn, I should have watched that. So what did I miss in The Holy Boy?
I mean, you missed it because you were sick. And, you know, where you have a funny parallel with the main lead of this movie, because when he goes to this town, he's very depressed, and everybody around him is in this very sort of happy state. And he's still very much depressed until he meets this kid who, when you hug him, you like sort of, it numbs the pain essentially. And I would say The Holy Boy or The Valley of Smiles, because I think The Holy Boy is such a literal title and sort of spoils the movie, is a very Ari Aster light movie. That isn't, you know, to say that this movie, you know, isn't good, because it very much is. I do think this is the best Italian movie that was played at this year's Venice Film Festival. But this movie is so short of being great because it uses so many elements from other horror movies that I'm like, damn it, you're there, but try to do something of your own that, you know, would mark your stamp onto the horror field, especially in a year that is such, like, it's such a good year for horror movies. And like, this could be up there if it wasn't for the fact that you are sort of taking this and taking that from other horror movies, and it's like, you're so close to being great. It's a very frustrating movie because like you can see greatness in it, and it unfortunately just at the end especially isn't. But in terms of atmosphere, this one nails it, especially in this little town, and the boy tries to be something else because he's thrown this savior role at him. But the more he talks with his PE teacher, which is very funny, by the way, because he arrives in this school. It's a substitute job. He's there for 3 months, and like his first lesson is legit like, "Alright, guys, just start running in circles, yeah." Like legit, that's it. And he's just making them go around in circle and circle. It's like, this is the entire P class. Okay. Like he even makes Matteo run the first time because he just didn't know he was that special. He also has a parrot.
There's a parrot.
That's he also has a parrot that he tries to make him speak, but he can't, and then the kid comes in and like the kid rephrases the parrot rephrases things the kid says, and it's like, so it has some comedic chops, and again, in terms of horror and atmosphere, it nails it, but it just doesn't do many original things, and that keeps it from being great. I think I said it 3 times now, so you can really sort of
you said it
how
once,
frustrated I am.
You said it once in the name of the Son, the Father, and the Holy Spirit, right?
Exactly. But I do give this a 7 out of 10. It's again, even the performances. I forgot to mention that
the kid good.
Romana Maggiora Vergano is in this movie, and she plays the lead in Il Tempo che si vuole, which was a movie that we both liked. And the moment I saw her, I was like, okay, I'm at least in for a good movie, because I feel like she's the Italian bar for
a good Italian movie, because that is like unexpectedly great.
Yeah, she's like the Adele Exarchopoulos for Italian cinema.
Right.
So I do recommend The Holy Boy. It is a very noteworthy addition to the horror movie lineup this year. Just not the S tier or the A tier necessarily.
I think it's one of the ones where I said like, I might, skip it because it literally has a release date 1 day from the day we are recording in Italy,
and like 2 weeks out from when the Venice Film Festival.
Not that I would go to Italy and understand the version of it, but I still was like, okay, I don't know how, like, because I was out of it when we reviewed.
You were sick.
I was like,
maybe that would have added to the experience for you.
You said that before we went into the movie. You were like, this is a horror movie, right? You should just stick it through, because once you're in it, you said in the room you felt better. I was like, yes, Kevin, because I settled into the reality that I feel like shit for 2 hours and I can't go now. So like, that's why I'm like, and then I come outside, I'm just like collapsing. But we ended up missing 2 films other than those from the festival. One of that are fiction films. We basically watched all of the fiction films at this festival, which we skipped Hungry Bird, L'isola di Andrea, because it got like watched by no one, and the best rating it got is a 4-star. No one gave this 4.5 and a 5, and most of it was like towards the bottom. I was like, okay, well, if the ceiling is like a 2-star movie, probably, then I think we can skip out on it. And the other one I think got like seen by no one. I don't even if they pulled it from the festival. Stone Over Stone, which also had like a different title that I don't know why it's not, like, no one could find it on Letterboxd. But yeah, both of those again, I think the least relevant ones we also ended up skipping, so I don't feel bad about that at all. Let's talk about some documentaries. There were a ton of them playing it out of competition between the two of us, which really means Kevin watched a bunch and I watched the rest. We screened 10 of them.
A bunch and the rest. Yeah, that basically sums it up.
Let's start off with Ghost Elephants by Werner Herzog. In Angola's mist-shrouded highlands, 3 Kaisan master trackers embark on a spiritual quest to rediscover the legendary ghost elephants of Lizima. Creatures presumed lost by technology, but remembered in ancestral trance, ritual, and memory. That's
Yo, Ewan. Honestly, yeah. Oh, great, fantastic.
Well, I feel like shit, but
especially the ghost elephants.
I think that's the only one I hit, but like it's hard to like do an impression of him. But he's such a unique storyteller. He's such a unique filmmaker. I love his films. I actually did a course on him in uni where we just watched like movies of his for half a year and then wrote a paper on it. And this one is like his other films, as much interested in discovering these ghost elephants as much as he's interested in the master trackers that go after them, or Steve Boys, a researcher, a doctor, Steve Boys, that is like after this Moby Dick like creature, and he's just so purely fascinated. Like in the beginning of the film, we are in the Smithsonian looking at like the huge skeleton of one of these, and he's just like shaking from excitement from seeing this in person and the possibility of discovering more. And I think that I thought that to be so infectious, and you can see that like that's something that Werner Herzog is also interested in. If like someone shares sort of a deep passion for something, that's where he finds it. And then he's also known for, you know, filming this stuff, and then the way that he presents his stories in voiceover, which is also where, you know, his trademark voice comes in, is so much comedy in there as well, because he's commenting on the stuff after experiencing it, adding his twist. Like sometimes always like being aware of how he comments on stuff is also part of how he's saying it, if that makes sense. Like there's a scene where a guy is just like repairing an instrument, and there's chickens going around, and he was like something like, not to sound, I know this is how this is going to sound, but isn't this just absolutely magnificent? And I was like, god damn. It's so funny. I was like, yes man, it is, and I love that we're sharing this moment and like how this is special. And that's like he can get that out of like a movie that ultimately, otherwise, if you look at the structure of a documentary, and you know it's about like finding these elephants, and then by the end of it hopefully we get a clip and see the elephants. Like that's what this movie is. There's so much more in it because it's him crafting the story, and that's like unique. You know, there's a lot of like documentaries have the interesting theme topic, they have none of the interesting storytelling. Werner Herzog always has the interesting storytelling, and then it's just about like, can the actual subject matter match up to like, you know, his brilliance. But yeah, if you can't tell, I had a great time with it. Kevin, what did you think about Ghost Elephants?
I mean, I had a great time with it as well. And I guess if we're bringing up our favorite moment, at a certain point they're setting up a track camera to obviously get some glimpse, something, and then they actually did, and then Werner Herzog announces like, and here's the moment, they captured it, but the video is like, it's pretty disappointing, and it's like, oh god, what are we seeing? And then you get to see the footage, and it's indeed pretty disappointing, because like you only like if this is the screen, you only really like see it here, like this small, and that's it. So I guess because he's such a humanistic filmmaker. And they do talk a lot about, you know, the dream about seeing a ghost elephant. And I didn't think I would mention another Julian Schnabel movie in this section, but there's a moment, the movie literally starts out with Steve Boyce at the Smithsonian, and he's literally he's doing the Willem Dafoe meme. Yeah. Of looking up at it as in Eternity's Gate. So it's like he has seen that Eternity's Gate.
There's some really funny frames in this, like when because at one point they do have to get the okay from a king who basically has in the history that like an elephant like used to be one of theirs, and then he transformed into an elephant and became one. That's why they share, like they are part of their tribe. That's how they see like these elephants, and they do have to get the okay to go in like this like deeper part of Angola, more into the wilderness, to track him down. And they sit down with him like twice, and like the about like you get the one like you get the two shot, and you get to like back and forth perspective, and it's just how uncomfortable everyone looks by like this whole disposition is so funny. It's like
especially because those tools are like so tiny, so they actually look way small.
Yeah, and it's like very much like not build up this sort of, you know, a king that is surrounded by richness, but he still has like, he has a really nice chair, he's like, he looks like a king, but then it's so anticlimactic and just like a room and they're talking, and a lot of it is just like dominance, but just waiting and just looking and holding that presence. It was like it was really interesting for a lot of like the human moments, when I think that's such a smart thing to do when you can't really, you know, say, oh, we're gonna look at all of these elephants, we want to discover them, and only like the tiniest amount of this film is actually about like, you know, finding and showing them. What I did not like, I think it's, I don't know if it is like his way of being direct and maybe bleak and honest in what he wants to depict, but I don't think it was necessary to show like poachers and like killing elephants. That just felt like, because we're coming from a place where we're curious about these creatures, from everyone who's featured in it. Like, I think one of them is called like the Elephant Killer as well, so it's not like that no harm is being done to them by anyone in Africa, but it takes a large chunk of like, you know, why it's important to preserve and you know, value these animals, and how a lot of it has been heard through trophy hunting and poachers and all that, and I think,
but like, would you leave that out?
No, I don't think the amount of like just letting it speak for itself by letting a clip play out was more beneficial.
I mean,
to the
they
story
don't
than
necessarily
shock.
show clips. I think they mostly show the headline, like an article piece.
I don't know. I thought I specifically remember that like the footage was a bit much to me, and like some of the audience also reacting to it, which obviously you don't have to sugarcoat, you know, actual reality. I'm not saying that, but it felt very much of like, oh, this is part of it, let's show the full thing, which I didn't think was adding much to what the story was about with the ghost elephants.
I didn't necessarily mind that. Again, for me, it's because he's such a humanistic filmmaker and focused on the dream aspect, on the community aspect of it.
Yeah.
The actual journey to see an elephant was rather quite short for me. And like, so all this build up, right, didn't really pay off for me that much, because, you know, like, we're talking about the dream. What if that dream is over? Then we do the journey, and then it's like, bam, we're in the lab. We're gonna analyze this shit, and it's like,
yeah, because a lot of it is like just interviews and contemplating what it means to find something that is unfindable, if you actually do want to find it, or if that's something that gives you life purpose. So I feel like, you know, more than the ghost elephants, we are looking at Steve Boyes as a person and what motivates him, and it's actually interesting. And I didn't mind that some of the trip itself was shorter. I also like the scientific parts of it, like that we get to see Smithsonian and uncover certain things that are usually always in like deep storage, so you can preserve it. Like the poop analysis, just going around and getting and like being excited about like the poop thing and how to do that. Like the scientific process is also featured in it. It's not like just the exotic like fantasization of like something wild that you need to capture. Because you could very much do a documentary that is about finding the ghost elephants, right, and uncovering them, but it is in itself a documentary that is very much about the process of finding something to get to like a sort of a truth and what that means. And I like that too. Like, there was so much to take away from this film that ultimately I think technically it was a bit rough around the edges. Like, for example, a German speaker who you don't use a de-esser on, just a very technical thing, in like the voiceover, if he's this close to the camera and he says shh, like that's, and the way that he talks like this with the emphasis at the end of his words, like it gets quite grinding in his voiceover, just because specifically how Werner Herzog talks is like the last syllable, and if that's an S, then it's like, I don't like it. I want the thing that Kevin has to turn down his noise.
Jealous.
Yeah.
But I will say also, in terms of like, because you have there's a Patrick Williams videos, like how we enjoy watching people be good at their jobs in film. I was very impressed with the actual like trackers.
Trackers were
like,
mad
I was
impressive.
very impressed with them. Like, wow.
Yep.
Like how they can spot things. Mad props to them.
And the casual thing about the arrows as well. Oh my god.
What?
I was on the edge of my seat, clenching my butthole, man, when they were like introducing the poison and how to gather it. There was like a poisonous arrows that they put onto it. I was like, telling that one of them once got like pierced in a conflict, and then he had to make the decision to like peel off his own fucking years to heal. Yeah, and he was just like very casual about it in the way of like, it's like the most badass fucking shit, and they were just like having it open. It was that was really tense. I was like, guys, can you put that away, please? It's making me nervous. It's making me nervous for you guys.
But again, that goes to show how effective this documentary is. In most parts. Yeah. I gave it an 8 out of 10.
I gave it an 8 out of 10 as well. Maybe even towards, a high 10. And this one ended up with a 3.75 on our jury grid as well. It was mainly, the two of us who liked it a lot, and then a bunch of 3.5 ratings for most of the other people on our jury grid. But it's definitely a worthwhile documentary. I think anything that Werner Herzog puts out is like at least worth checking out.
It's probably going to pop up on the National Geographic channel. Because it is done by them. Yeah. So Disney Plus, I presume.
Probably Disney Plus. It didn't get the Disney Plus logo, but it probably pop up there. Let's talk about our cover-up after winning the Golden Lion in 2023 for All the Beauty and the Bloodshed. Laura Poitras is back alongside Mark Obenhaus to craft a portrait of the past 6 decades of work that Seymour Hersh has been doing at the front lines of political journalism in the United States of America. This arresting documentary, released at a crucial moment for the freedom of the press, tells the wide-ranging story of this breakthrough reporter. And what to me was the outstanding thing about this documentary is that Hersh is someone who's very much reserved. He does not want to share any of his his process. Like some of the sources that don't want to be named, he could lose if he is just partaking in this documentary, like the risk of all of that. And they've been trying to make this documentary for like 20 years. I think Laura first approached him in 2005, and he said no over and over again, and I guess it just kind of wore him down over time, because I don't know how open he is like to this day for this documentary, when they are actually filming him, because it's quite confrontational in the way that it's like, no, don't ask me that, like, don't do that, don't go here. And what we instead get is about like 5-ish different like really historically important moments in US history that he was a part of uncovering and representing the very important investigative journalism at times when it was the norm to just go to the press conferences of the White House and look at the press release and just basically one-to-one copy what they said there. He was out there challenging all of it, uncovering these cover-ups, and I found that just to be so riveting to see it come back to like basically one person in so many ways. Made me realize how fragile like this whole journalistic system really is, and how much we depend on singular voices that are willing to stand out and stand for the truth. And I found it moving, I found it important. Kevin, what did you think?
I must admit, I was a bit tired in the screening. I did open up my eyes, but I was sort of following along the story pretty well, because it is a little bit repetitive in the sense of here's the case he worked on, here's the case he worked on, here's the case he worked on, here's another case he worked on, and that's and I mean all the cases are pretty riveting on its own, but if you do put them next to each other like that, it does feel a bit repetitive, and that is to no fault to Laura Poitras, because as you said, I mean he's being very reserved to himself, so you can only get so much out of it, and she probably didn't get much out of it as she wanted to, but I do still think she did a phenomenal job with it, especially the way she tells the story is never boring at all. So it is a pretty interesting and remarkable story that unfortunately just doesn't maximize on its subject, and that is to no fault to anybody but the subject himself, and obviously due to the nature of the story that is being told.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I did already at the festival disagree with that. I think the strength comes from his reluctance to share anything about himself, because that's not the point, because that's not the sort of person he is. And I think through that, I think we get sort of everything that I was interested in this person, who is completely just reflected in the work that he's doing. I also think that it's interesting that they touch on like the controversy that has been around him like in recent years, because he like had a report in February of 2023 when he had a single like source that told him that like the US like bombed the Russian pipelines, when a lot of like political thing that he was criticized for reporting on that and it not being true, and like how what the repercussions are. Like, to me, it's also interesting like to look at the 4 pillars of journalism, which are like to seek truth and report it, minimize harm, act independently, and be accountable and transparent. And I think he kind of like checks the boxes for all of these. In a lot of ways, when you say minimize harm, it is like there's harm to be undone, there's harm that was done and you're uncovering it, which causes more harm in like the collective consciousness of knowing that these things go on. But just to be ignorant is also to be complicit, in my opinion. And that's why like it's really important to like to bring to light these injustices. And I also knew a lot about like the stories individually that like were brought up, which also added to it that like you see the process of how they were uncovered in a way. Like I found the whole thing, because maybe I'm a bit more interested in journalism as a profession a bit more than you are as well. So like for me it was like all around pretty
what is
riveting.
this stray I'm catching?
No,
Fuck?
not that you're like, but I'm sorry. No, I mean, it's just a fact. I think I'm a bit more interested in like world politics and journalism than you are, which is that's not a bad thing or a good thing to be interested in, but like
still it felt like a stray.
Well, you're a good dog, so you're a good stray. I'll take you in, okay? Well, the thing is, he's also still currently working, but independently. I think like his time at the New York Times and how they've split up, like how his books were received. Like there's a ton of that in there, and basically all of his comments are like, it's just moving on, because like there's more stories to tell. And I found that to be like really just like a sympathetic portrait of him. I was like, damn, okay, I'll subscribe to that Substack and read his stuff. I can't wait to hear more from Sai. But I give it an 8.5 out of 10. I think this was probably like one of the best documentaries of the festival.
I give it a reserved 8 out of 10.
On a jury grid, it was also the 5th highest rated film of the whole festival. It had a 3.49. I think the lowest rating that someone gave it was a 3.5. So this is a documentary to have onto your radar, and it was also seen by a bunch of people. Remake ended up having like a higher one, but seen by less. So one to be on the lookout for. I wouldn't be surprised if this gets definitely on the short list, if not nominated for an Oscar later in the year.
A survivor, provocateur, and true original, Marianne has spent more than 6 decades defying expectations, releasing over 35 albums while constantly reinventing herself. Made with her full involvement, Broken English is an intimate and unflinching exploration of a fractured yet unbreakable life shaped by fame, creativity, and relentless public scrutiny. Coming in at just 96 minutes, starring Tilda Swinton and George McKay and many others. Ewan, what did you think of Broken English?
Well, I went into this documentary not knowing who Marianne Faithfull is, and I came out of it very much knowing what Marianne Faithfull is and what her life was like, not just knowing who she is in like the Wikipedia articles and the facts about her life and how she was written about and kind of seen by the public at the time. This is definitely like a movie that has way more to say about the world that Marianne Faithfull lived in. Unfortunately, she has since passed away, but her full involvement with this documentary is very apparent in the way that it's structured. It is very much about the focus of remembering. So basically, it is basically structured through the Ministry of Not Forgetting, which Tilda Swinton is leading, and she's like on the phone with George McKay, and they have like another project coming in. This is like implied that it's not the first one that they did, and like the ministry is under scrutiny for like being relevant, and like it's commenting on a lot of like stuff that is obviously like, you know, directly saying something at the audience. Sometimes this film does tell the audience like a bit too many things explicitly, and like spells everything out, and like opinions that are very much like held if you are in agreement with what is being talked about. But I think then also, if that's a criticism of like they over like it's overwritten, in a way it's also just about it being said at one point in time and it being recorded and in this form. Often that can be read as like cheesy and overindulgent. I think here it kind of makes sense, although those were definitely like, there's some moments that are just the interview with her and George McKay, who are like talking, and then he shows her like a clip of herself. So the documentary wants to be about like the many identities of Marianne Faithfull as she is present, like sick and old, talking about her experience and how she views it now. And then very much seeing a lot of like spirit being reflected in those like older clips where she's open with the press, talks openly about her emotions and how that is not acceptable in the time that she lived in, and how groundbreaking she was as a symbol of the swinging 60s. And I just found it to be fascinating because like it's not a time that I know a lot about. Like the 60s and 70s, I listened to a lot of music from it. I haven't heard of her music, unfortunately, or maybe I've listened to it but wasn't didn't know that it was hers. But just sort of the cultural thing, we break it down to like the most relevant, you know, historical events that happened during it. But like this also takes a look at like how it was living through it as a young woman in these times, and being this sort of symbol of like feminism in a way as well. I liked it a lot. I gave this one an 8 out of 10. It might not be for everyone. I think opinions were a bit all over the place for it. It might not be up your speed, but I also think George McKay is an incredible interviewer. Like just not just in this movie. I would love to see him just do like, if he hosted a podcast that is about like interviewing other actors and directors, I'd listen to that. Like it's very much like he comes with a lot of like excitement that feels not put on. It doesn't feel like a performance. He feels like he's genuinely interested in something that is more than an interview, like going over someone's life. I found it to be like very well put together. So 8 out of 10 for Broken English.
I was just wondering when Marianne Faithfull passed away, and it was the 30th of January this year, so almost a little less than 8 months ago. By reading everything, I was sort of looking it up, and I read a bit more in the background. I'm actually really interested in documentary, especially after what you said. So I'll definitely check this one out when it inevitably drops on VOD, because I don't know when this movie is coming out.
I forgot to say one more thing, is that they acknowledge that she's passing away in the film itself. And like before finishing it, so obviously in the edit you could still add that, but the movie ends with her giving a performance. Like they talk about it in the beginning of the film, that it's like unlikely that she can still like do something, but like symbolically it would be very nice to you know, have something like that. So she performs together with Nick Cave, and it is like that moment, knowing that she's since passed away and this is already a legacy piece, was to me very moving. And it's also something that, you know, I've talked about before, that like I don't want to do retrospectives on people as soon as they pass away. I'd rather want to do like retrospectives, or like look at someone's filmography while they're still alive, and like, you know, appreciating like, not that they would get something out of knowing that we did that, but it feels like, I don't know, it feels better to me if you still like, you know, giving this was that more directly together with her, the way they did this documentary. But I found this to be like really beautiful, and like there's like they ended on something like gone and not forgotten. And my final note that I wrote down in my notebook was like, God fucking damn, because it ends on such an emotional note of like celebrating someone's life. That's something we do not do often enough. We are more cynical than we are praising. And here it's someone who's definitely like someone who's worthy of so much love, and I found that to be reflected in this documentary. So yeah,
looking forward to it.
Yes.
Marked by Sofia Coppola's latest movie, which happens to be a documentary, is an intimate, unconventional portrait of Marc Jacobs, crafted by Sofia Coppola to capture the genius and singular universe of the iconic American designer. A24, 97 minutes long. Does it live up to Sofia Coppola standards, to A24 standards, Ewan?
Well, I think both of those have been, I don't know, sometimes high, sometimes low. It's very much all over the place. So I don't know. Depends on like the standard you set for both of them. I think this was a documentary that felt a bit like a vanity project, unfortunately. I'm sorry. Like it's a portrait of someone, a friend of 30 years, for her, and she follows him along as he's doing his latest exposition, his like latest I guess show, and then puts it into context with a lot of like other footage of how he came up, what he did, what did he do first, like what did he do in other shows, because he has lived a very public life. There's a lot to be taken from that, and a lot of it is just like interviews where they're just the head-on interviews, just like talking one-on-one, where it's just Sofia talking with Marc, and that is like quite interesting if you're just interested in the friendship and hearing from him directly about his work. I don't think what it aspires to be, which is like capturing his creative process, showing that, connecting his inspiration and references to future generations, is what she writes in the director's statement. I think that is a bit overambitious in what this documentary actually is. It is like, it starts off, to get the sort of vibe right, with a montage of people saying his name, as if it's like it's coming from a place of the validation comes through the sort of popularity as well, and the status he has held in the world, and then it's just like showing us another show of his and why he's persisted to do it. And I'm just not interested in fashion. I think someone who's interested in fashion might get like more out of this than I did. But I thought it to be like a very clumsy documentary too, that kind of jumps back and forth and has no real pacing, no real drive to it, other than ultimately we are going to end with him doing yet another show and see the process of like how he does it. And unfortunately also the show, like I thought to be like the closer kind of shit, but that's just my opinion. Like come on, the closer unfortunately kind of shitty, and like he had some pretty like sick ones in some of the stuff that they show, but like the latest one, I don't know, it just wasn't at all for me. I also could have like delved more into because the way that these fashion shows work, you design something for weeks and months on end, someone walks through it, leaves, people take pictures, they see it, but there's nothing else that comes out of that, right? There's only that glimpse that you get of something. So it's like about crafting the singular moment that only exists then and then is lost, right? It's not something that's captured like a movie or like a picture, and then it's that art form in itself. And I think she tries to at least like get there, that like that is captured. I don't think she succeeds, unfortunately.
I don't have anything yet. I haven't seen it. Sorry.
I gave it a 5 out of 10. It's a pretty like run-of-the-middle documentary overall. The death of his son causes McAlvey, an autobiographical filmmaker, to look back on his life's work. He eventually turns to his archive of home movies. To what extent did his camera affect their relationship when Adrian was alive? To what extent does it define that relationship now that he is gone? Meanwhile, an effort to adapt McAlvey's first feature, Sherman's March, into a work of fiction lurches along, giving the filmmaker another perspective from which to mediate on movie making and mortality. That's Remake by Ross McAlvey, a movie that Kevin and I were both deeply touched by. I'm just going to read you the whole director's statement as well, because I think it kind of speaks for itself and what this whole movie is. It's been 14 years since I premiered my last film, Photographic Memory, here in Venice. What animated that film was the sense that I no longer understood my son, Adrian, the way I once thought I did. As a child, Adrian liked being filmed, and I liked filming him. It was a process that linked us. But as the years went by, things changed, for him and for me. When Adrian died, suddenly and unexpectedly, in the winter of 2016, I wasn't sure I would make another film. Eventually, I started going through my home movies again. All these accumulated moments with my son, who was no longer here. And then I began to look at what he'd filmed too. Remake is both my attempt to hold on to Adrian and to let him go.
To some people, this whole thing can sound pretty pretentious. I mean, just a couple of years ago, we had a movie called Amor, which is literally about someone's dead mother. And if I recall correctly, you said you went so far to the point you didn't even make me care about your dead mother anymore.
Yeah, that was unfortunate.
Again, these documentaries do exist, and oftentimes can just land absolutely flat. This one doesn't, especially in the director's statement, because once you read the director's statement, there just really isn't that much more you can add without actually telling and spoiling the documentary, if you can call it that. But he mentioned photographic memory, and in that he follows his son's addiction, to which he unfortunately passed away in 2016. In that documentary of him, he sort of reflects upon it and says, like, I sort of made a happy ending at the end of that documentary, saying, and Adrian, or like his son, is all fine, and, you know, sort of happily ever after sort of ending. And that's why it also makes sense that this documentary is called Remake, because he's reflecting upon it. He's sort of retelling the story after all the pain he's endured. Again, his son died in 2016, so this is almost 9 years after the fact that he had died. And, you know, oftentimes in sort of these family moments, you wish like, I wish I could have recorded that. And he has literally the amount of footage that Ross McElwee has of his life is absolutely stunning. Even when you're watching older stuff, such as Sherman's March, and then you see his friend when she doesn't remember all of the stuff that they have done in those movies, and how people adore her in that documentary. I mean, just everything about it is so touching. It really hit me emotionally quite hard. Ewan, I'm guessing it did for you as well.
Yeah, I mean, the movie itself is also, to me, about like, I like what sort of identity of you is created, the many identities of you, that like the ones that are on film, that are, you know, there, that are a version of you, but that aren't you specifically. And like you said with the friend there, like she doesn't remember, so like that version of her in a way doesn't exist anymore because she can't remember it in her mind, but it's still there, like in a different way. And he also, to his son, as a way, like the way that he described the first year of him, you know, after his death, just rewatching the same couple of clips again, and him beginning to be more like a fictional character that lives in these movies, other than like an actual person that has existed. Like he describes it as like as if he's never existed at all. And it's like I broke out into full on fucking tears. I had to like it was this movie was heartbreaking, obviously, because the loss of a child is always heartbreaking, but then also retracing the steps over and over again, I found to be like quite brave. I honestly think this was something that I could totally understand if you would hang up the coat and never, you know, sort of go at this again, try to revisit it. I found it also to be quite moving in the way that, like you said, like the way that he has captured so much of him, and like it's described in the I believe in the synopsis, or at least in the director's statement. As a child, he wanted to be filmed a lot, and then as it got more difficult in life and they grew apart, just by virtue of like getting older, it is also like those moments that you don't have, that you feel like you're missing out because you didn't capture it. So it's like always being at odds with was that the camera hurting for their relationship overall, or was it a good thing, or like, and it goes for that not knowing an answer and just like openly stating them. It feels very therapeutic the way that he goes about it, but not just someone venting out their emotions, but something carefully constructed that feels so deeply authentic. And that is just, to me, something, one of the hardest things you could ever do in media, to have something that truly speaks and communicates to our collective humanity. And I think this is one of the works that represents that.
Especially the understanding of looking back at the footage that his son filmed and really wondering, like, I wondered what you were thinking at that moment. What you were doing with your life. Like you said, it adds so much to it. It's devastating as fuck.
Yeah. It's also like, you know, there's this one thing that he mentions with there's the way that it opens with an animation, and again, I do want to get people to see it, so I won't say how that fully plays into it, but there's like a lot of these moments that don't feel constructed, but they feel just right. Like he talks about a poem that he wrote, that Adrian wrote as a kid, and reads it out. Like, you know, it doesn't make much sense, but it makes sense to me. Like, it's just wonderful moments of this father sharing so much love for his son, and yeah, I like it. I'm trying to not tear up right now.
Yeah,
I love this. It's really good.
A movie like this can be very manipulative.
Oh yeah, that too.
But this one doesn't have an ounce of manipulation. It very much earns everything that is shown on the screen.
Yeah.
And every heartstring that has been pulled, fucking hell, it pulls.
Yeah.
So yeah, I gave it a 9 out of 10. I truly hope, because every year there is that one documentary that, you know, has all the praise, you know, has all the support behind it, but doesn't get nominated for the Oscars. Like every year there's one. My neighborhood. Which one was it? The Rogers one again?
Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. Wasn't that the fiction movie?
Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. Yeah. Like that didn't get nominated, right? Even though it was like the most praised documentary this year. I truly hope Remake doesn't have that same fate.
Because his son passed away from a drug overdose because there was fentanyl in the drugs.
Yeah.
I could see this be very much spun into a politically relevant movie, which I don't think it is. So honestly, if I think this shouldn't be nominated, not because it then enters that part of the discourse that I think is very toxic for a film like this.
I know, but I do want more people to see it.
Yeah, and through that we definitely recommend.
Get more eyes on it?
Yeah, true. I mean, there's a double-edged sword of getting that. But I also gave it a 9 out of 10. It's the highest rated film in a jury bracket. It tied Silent Friend there.
I mean, it's my number 2 of the festival.
Yeah, it's in my top 5 at least as well. And the documentary that by far moved me the most so far this year, I'd say. Yeah. I just wanted to say, again, I think for what he did, to talk to him directly, Ross, I think we see you and we see your son. Beautiful work.
Back home, Tsang Ming Liang, also known from Goodbye Dragon Inn, Walker, Abiding Nowhere, Journey to the West, has a new film out called Back Home. We witness buildings in various states of habitation and disrepair, farm animals, rice fields, religious sites, domestic scenes, a sun-dappled food mart, and a dog adorably trying and failing to escape a carnival ride.
Cinematic event of the year.
It really was. But this was your first Tsang Ming Liang film, and I sort of prepared you for it because last year at the Ghent Film Festival, I watched Walker, and that was such a zen movie.
Didn't you watch Abiding Nowhere?
I was sort of that I did also.
Oh,
after I think.
Okay, wait, he's just a fanboy of that one monk. He just follows him everywhere.
Nah. But I very much enjoyed Back Home. Did you?
I think I didn't completely get it. Although you did mentally prepare for it. prepared me for it. I just I knew what you described when you were describing. I knew what you were describing when you described. Yeah, great sentence. Say less, Ewan.
Walker, yeah.
Walker and Abiding Nowhere, about like a monk just like slowly taking steps, and I didn't feel what you described there, like the potential of a different sort of cinematic experience that you get, because with the setup of just getting every minute or so like a different frame to look at, like a different scene to play out, you expect that maybe some of them stand out a bit more, or overall they paint a larger picture of a place. I felt like that never happened to me. The sort of, you know, constraints of filmmaking that is written out, and you know that it has scripts. If you don't use them, you can definitely like make interesting films as well. I just don't think that like what he calls hand sculpted cinema is like I didn't get that out of it. Like the most I got was like, oh, how crooked is the next house going to be, because like a lot of them were like very crooked and very states of decay, so that was entertaining. Or like the one longer scene where like the dog tries to get out of a carnival ride. I was like, I was feeling bad. I was like jump checking all of the children and their feet, because like some of them were like not pulling them in. I was like, if you are gonna kick the dog, I'm for the next, like, even though this is one of the first moments, I'm going to hate you for the rest of the movie that you kicked the dog. So it was like, that was about the most excitement I had, unfortunately, during Back Home.
Well, no, that wasn't the most excitement. I
no,
mean, at a certain moment,
yeah, no, I remember. Okay,
at a certain moment, there's like a kid, and all of a sudden there's a little kitty that goes behind him, and I turned, because Ewan is a cat person. I just turned to Ewan and he was like,
yeah. The thing is, like, I totally forgot. The thing is, like, you dead stare at this movie and you're like, okay, I take it in. And then something happens where like, oh, and it's like, cool. Yeah.
But like his movies are made to reflect upon, to wonder and ponder their lives against your own. I mean, that's what Abiding Nowhere made me do. It's like, wow, is this really what this monk does? And it's like, at that moment, I'm like, bro, what am I doing with my own life? And it's like, man.
Am I the dog stuck in the carousel trying to get out and people almost kicking me at every turn?
Well, in a certain way, it absolutely is.
I know.
And one favorite shot of mine was a bunch of cows, but then there was like the smallest cow of all time. He gets and they're like shaking around him. It's like, it's sort of a mind fucking shot. There's definitely a meditative sort of. It's a meditative way of cinema, and they're not going to be all great. They're not going to be all interesting. I'm totally aware of that. And Abiding Nowhere is way more zen and interesting than Back Home. I totally agree with you on that thing.
You know, it's a sort of meditation, hypnosis, those things you have to be willing to enter. And it's the same thing with a movie like this.
And I don't think we were both open for it when this was the last movie, even though it was just an hour.
Because then
still,
you were
if it's just 6 movie.
Yeah, you're kind of signing yourself over to be tired as well, which is not the same as open for meditation. And also at a festival like this, when you're this busy, my thoughts often then go to planning out the rest of my day, or like I'm thinking about something completely different other than like trying to connect it back to my life. So like, you know, I end up having my thoughts like ponder, and then kitten, you know, and my attention is back. So yeah. I gave it a 5 out of 10.
If that cinema is for you, then go check it out. I gave it a 7 out of 10.
And I gave it a 5 out of 10. Just I'm willing to try out more from Sun Min Leng. This just wasn't unfortunately for me.
Next up, we have Kabul Between Prayers. A devoted soldier of the Taliban's ideology that has shaped his destiny since birth, Samim, 22 years old, struggles between the alluring promises of martyrdom and the mundanity of his daily existence as a husband and a farmer. Samim's younger brother, Rafi, 14 years old, idolizes his big brother as he navigates the confusion of adolescence, leaving behind playfulness to enter a world shaped by decades of military intervention and resulting radicalization. Ewan, I have not seen this film, so I'm handing the mic over to you. What do I need to expect of Kabul between prayers? Is it any good? Does it live up to its synopsis? You tell me.
Well, yeah, it's from Abazur Armani, who takes in the role of like not someone who's aligned with the Taliban and like how they run things, but is willing to put himself in the perspective of not really condemning them for anything that they do or like blaming them for any of the problems that are going. Like he takes them in as they are and just lets them kind of speak. And I found that to be really beneficial, to have a couple of like really candid moments that you like shaking your head at, and just the juxtaposition of someone who is always carrying around a rifle, and whenever it's time to like pray, he like puts down the rifle and just like wherever he's out, he starts praying. But like that sort of peaceful thing of like praying is then always connected with like what, like how he presents with a weapon, or like how they ride out in like decked out a motorcycle cruise and just run through the streets, and like a lot of it is like it feels harmless in what he actually is doing, but then while he's doing harmless things most of the time, he's like carrying a rifle with him the whole time, and that like ends up getting a bit repetitive because it ends up like not really saying much other than whenever the younger brother comes in, and you can see that sort of the idolization he has of his brother, the sort of view of war as this martyrdom, as like war is something to strive towards, that is something great, it's something honorable, only men possess honor. You can see that fanaticism, you know, being in there and like being lost in it so easily because it's part of like the norm and what you aspire to be. And that was very troubling. Like one of my notes in like that I wrote down while watching was like, oh, we're doomed, like these cycles of violence and war just being passed down as if it's the norm. And that to me was pretty troubling, when the documentary itself and how it's presenting is not really alerting you of anything. It really is just like, you know, it's almost like showing you the daily lives of these people. It's also giving us a full picture of someone, that they aren't just, you know, the guy holding the gun and you're reducing him down to like the Taliban, in a radicalized Taliban guy, but he also has a moment where he's like talking to someone and he's using sign language, and you can see like there's a few layers of like actually connecting with other people, but it's because the region has just been so rooted in this ongoing violence over and over again. People know nothing different than this violence, and instead of condemning them individually, you know, for something that we see as wrong, and like for this to stop and be better than this, you can see them as like a product of a whole, like, you know, a decades long cycle of violence that has been ravaging that region. So I think in what it sets out to do, this is a super interesting documentary. The way it's presented was very held back, and in a lot of moments it did get like kind of bland and boring to see, but I definitely saw the larger picture, and I did kind of like how it ends, where it's like giving us a bit more, which I don't want to spoil, and I just hope the movie had a bit more like directly to say as well. But I ended up on a 6 out of 10 for Kabul Between Prayers.
My Father and Qadaffi. When Jihan was 6 years old, her father flew to Cairo and never returned. Mansour Rishad Kikya was the foreign minister of Libya, ambassador to the United Nations, and a human rights lawyer. After serving in Gaddafi's increasingly brutal regime, he defected from the government and became a peaceful opposition leader. Kikya was obsessively loyal to his country, but ultimately his determination to rejoin Gaddafi led to his disappearance from a hotel in Egypt in 1993. Sounds quite intriguing. Tell me more.
Yes, so I gotta say, I mistook this as, when I first read it, as like My Father and Qadaffi. I read that as like, you know, she's actually the daughter of Qaddafi. So it's like My Father and Qaddafi, like the two different instances, but it's literally about like her father being taken by Qaddafi in 1993. And this film then tries to retrace the steps of sort of a disappearance, and how he's been like forgotten, and how so many people also were forgotten. But it comes from a place where Jihan is very interested in just getting to know more about her dad, because people like stop talking about something as horrific as this is happening, where you're not supposed to talk about it anymore. And it's also about like that part of our identity of being Libyan being like taken away from her, because it's also been taken away from the country with this dictatorship that I think like it went on for really a long time. To like kind of retrace those steps, ultimately I think in its presentation it is like quite snappy. It has like some needle drops in there. It feels quite like someone who, like, as if someone from with a young perspective is making it. So if that makes sense, to still kind of have that, maybe juvenile would be a bit like, you know, reductive to say, but it has a bit of that like energy that is not matching the tone of what it's about. It's like almost as if it's trying to reclaim something, and I don't know if that, like, you know, if there's something to reclaim, because ultimately it's a really like sad affair. It's then going around to the family members who you know, do know him and have known him because they were older, because she was only 6 when he disappeared. She really was a little child. And then having moments with her mom and with her uncles, like one of the actual brother has like a moment that he has in the car, like remembering him and like tearing up. That was quite moving. But ultimately I think this, like, it has a sort of set goal to uncover something, to find something about yourself and about her dad and about Libya, and maybe also imagining a different world where he didn't disappear, where he would have been like someone who could have led a better Libya. So it's like not really doing that fully, but like that's so the sort of feeling I had coming from it. And then I didn't get much out of it, unfortunately, other than this very personal thing about someone important who disappeared and the reaction from the immediate family. What I found interesting is whenever she basically made it really digestible bits of Libyan history, like for example focusing on the Italian invasion that Libya suffered under Mussolini, and then I found it interesting that like then that movie is premiering in Venice, when I think, compared to like, you know, the Germans who are always focused on, you know, the sort of correction and paying back all the bad things they did during the first 2 world wars, I don't think Italy is like processing that in the same way. Like it feels like those things are lingering a bit more than maybe in Germany. So I found it interesting that like there's a clear critique of like Italy in there. It also talks about Arab Spring that happened like in the early like 2010s and
2011, I think it is.
Yeah, but I think like a ongoing process that, like but especially for Libya it was like slightly after, I believe, and like the effects of that, and like that also laid the groundwork to finally ask those questions, and still being told that like certain things that like you shouldn't really ask much more of. And then once it like finally has something physical to get to, which I don't really see that as a spoiler, but there's something tangible for her to like, you know, connect with her dad that was not uncovered before the documentary was made. I found that to be like quite moving, and how little it actually told us as well felt like also hit the like nail on the head in that way.
I'm not gonna lie. When I hear you talking about it, I'm still here in the back of my head, especially when you lost that, like, oh, when she has something tangible. I'm still here at the end. It's when they actually sign a document that he's missing or something, like something definitive. So like, does it compare to that?
It does compare a bit to it, but like it's specifically for Jihan, who's like trying to hear like her father, not through the recordings, like when he's in some larger UN meeting or something like that, and sees him, like how he reacts and hyper focuses on him. It's literally something he wrote after he's been kidnapped, and like the way that he talks about like what he actually wants and what that represents for like him as a person, for the country as a whole, and the sort of person he is all of those 3 things, and the state he's in, like in that moment, they're all like in there. And it like that letter by itself like basically is better than the whole movie, unfortunately, because it like encapsulates what she's trying to say and what she's trying to uncover with it, and the rest of it feels very much like therapeutic for her, or like to work through something,
but not for the viewer.
Not really for the viewer, and for at least not for me. Maybe it's very different if you have again like similar experiences, not specifically in Libya, but you know, that's like the strong reactions that people had with I'm Still Here review, is like the collective, you know, remembrance of that trauma is like shared with everyone of a certain age, and even like in later generations for Brazilians. Yeah, and it's that whole region, you know, that like suffers under a lot of those dictatorships and the instability caused by the Western forces interfering with whatever's going on. But yeah, I ended up with a 6 out of 10 for it. Again, I think it's like it's not a right documentary, but unfortunately it wasn't really a standout to me.
Then we got Landmarks, a movie I unfortunately skipped out of. But of course, when it comes to documentaries, one person will always be there for you, and it's Ewan Kraft. The synopsis reads as follows. In 2009, a man and 2 accomplices tried to evict members of the indigenous community of Xuxagasta in northern Argentina. Claiming ownership of the land and armed with guns, they killed the community's leader, Xavier Chocobar. The murder is caught on video. It takes 9 years of protest before court proceedings are finally opened in 2018. During all this time, the killers remain free. The film combined the voices and photographs of the community with courtroom footage to explore the long history of colonialism and land dispossession that led to this crime. Sounds, once again, intriguing. Ewan, tell me more about it.
Well, a documentary like this is all about how do you assemble it. You have all of the components, you have lots of footage, sometimes pretty like, you know, you literally have the footage of the attack going on, and then it's just the phone falls onto the ground for like halfway through the thing, and then you just hear it. Like you have that sort of footage still. You don't have like, you know, something interesting to look at the whole time. But this is sort of movie that is quite long as well, that doesn't feel like it's at every turn making the right decision to keep me interested in the message and the topic it wants to discuss. A lot of it is just basically representing everyone and giving them like a moment where there's a bunch of still photos that we like go through slowly and showing us this indigenous community, and then also the court hearings who are like, there's nothing that is really abbreviated about any part of this, which I get why it's supposed to like not leave anything out. It ends up being like not put together in a way that is enjoyable to watch, which is the wrong thing about like something that is serious. But you do have to bring in that aspect of actually keeping me interested in what you are putting into a movie, because otherwise I just read up on it and that be like read about it, and that would be better, you know, more informative, more direct. What you're missing is like, you know, actually seeing the people affected by all of it. But I don't think this is like working in the benefit, at least to me, like who they want to like represent and champion and all of that. It also didn't fill in a lot of the context that maybe I was a bit like missing, and just having a like basically a slideshow of photos felt just like a very repetitive, simple presentation. And it goes from like phone footage to recording of the court to like photos of indigenous people, and it does that cycle like it felt like 15-20 times, and it just didn't really build to anything much more. I think this would have been like you said, like Kevin is interested in it, it would have been way more interesting if it was presented better. And I was also wondering, as silly as that sounds, and because sometimes when you do fiction movies, feature films, then you take away a lot of the truth to craft a better narrative. But I wonder if this would have worked as a feature maybe even better than it did as a documentary in I think what they were like after. But yeah, I unfortunately ended up on a 4 out of 10 for this one. It's the one documentary where I contemplated like leaving the most, just because I felt it was painfully repetitive. Did not have a good time with it. But I saw some people who had this as one of their favorites, so maybe I was just like missing the point. So just FYI, it's not like a horrible movie all around that you should never see, maybe this is something that you're actually interested in, and in the way that it like tells its story.
Alexander O'Phillippe is back with another documentary about a certain film after Chain Reaction, Alien, Lynch Art. He's now back with Kim Novak's Vertigo. It explores Kim Novak's life, highlighting her role in Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo and her journey from stardom to a reclusive life as an artist in Oregon, using rare archival footage and Novak's own reflection. Now, the reason I missed out on this movie is because I have not seen Vertigo. I know, I apologize. But hey, if it makes up for anything, look, I own it. Wait, it's not on this one, I'm sorry. It's on this box set. I do own it.
His
so
box is full of the movie, but he hasn't seen it.
Yeah, I literally have another box set of Hitchcock. So I almost have all of his movies. And I've seen a lot of his films. I just haven't seen them from start to finish. But look, we have someone who has seen Vertigo, which is Ewan. So, Ewan, is this movie as good as Vertigo?
No, obviously not. Vertigo is like one of the best movies ever made. This is not one of the best movies ever made. It's barely even a full movie, unfortunately. I had a great time with it because it explores Kim Novak's life through movies. In a lot of like direct interviews, she speaks to her experience. She's excited about a dress they uncover that she wore in Vertigo. She like discusses the sort of different identities she has to take on in Vertigo, playing like, you know, herself, playing someone else, and the meta-ness of all of that. Unfortunately, it's a lot of those observations that she makes after she's asked the question, she makes in real time. And we cut back to it a bunch of times, so it feels like very unpolished in the way that like she gives answers, which feel a bit like frantic and all over the place. And this documentary, even though I think it is not too long, it does end up feeling 77 minutes. This feels not like an hour 15. It feels quite a bit longer, which is unfortunate. There's just nothing here, maybe even not for a short film. It has the thing of having the like a moment play out, and then her, like, as you see on the internet now with like reaction streams, they do this in this movie. There's also an unboxing because she's unboxing like a dress, and it legit takes like 4 or 5 minutes into in the film when she's actually like all of it feels incredibly dragged out. And then the question is, do we learn anything interesting about King Novak along the way? I was like, I guess maybe a little bit. Not really. And the part about it that focuses on Vertigo is quite repetitive too, because it always becomes about like her being fascinated by like the different characters she's played. And it's like, okay, yes, and like what that experience was like, how different they are, and it feels pretty vain. Like I honestly didn't get, like, I think the director's statement where Alexander says, as a child in Switzerland, I watched movies surrounded by the mask wallpaper nearly identical to the one at Ernie's, where Judy as Madeline makes her entrance. And they show like a photo of him in his childhood room, and then the one seen in Vertigo and like the diner thing, and it looks exactly the same. And that to me was the most interesting part about this movie. I was like, that's fascinating. Tell me more about that. And like, Kim Novak is equally as fascinated by that, by the way, as I am. I was like, holy shit, yeah, tell me more about that. Like, that's where your fascination with it started. I was like, that's interesting. But unfortunately, nothing that she says like ever reaches that like same excitement.
I really liked, I didn't really like, but I was really intrigued by Lynch Arts, but I must admit that it's mostly because Lynch Arts is a sort of essays, right? And you have different filmmakers doing a bit on the movie. I think Chain Reactions was like that.
Chain Reactions was like 4 different or 5 different people in the entertainment industry talking why the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is important to them.
Lynch Arts was also in the same way told,
and that was not repetitive because it moves from different person to different person, and some of them are like quite interesting and good storytellers. If you have someone, unfortunately, I'm sorry, like Kim Novak, who cannot keep a thought straight, then like what she's saying is not that interesting. You feel like you're concluding the thought before she like says it. And
Yeah.
you know, she goes on like different tangents. I gave this a 5 out of 10.
There are only a couple of documentaries we missed. The most prominent one was Ferdinando Schiana in Fotografo del Ombra, which I had to miss because I had another screening which I needed to make in order to make the spotlight screening the next day. But the movie looked absolutely gorgeous. Like I have heard from some people that movie is just stunning. So I'm a bit bummed I missed out on that documentary. But we have watched one music documentary out of, probably a whole bunch more. And I haven't even watched that one, even though I did want to watch that one as well, which is Newport and the Great Folk Dream. It's a documentary about the first editions of Newport's Folk Festival, where, such famous people as Johnny Cash, Bob Dylan, Joan Baez, John Hurt, John Lee Hooker played, and a whole bunch of more people. Ewan, was this documentary, as exciting as the Folk Festival in its earliest editions, or not?
Because I have personal experience going there. What do you mean?
Yeah, because you're that old.
Yes, of course I'm that old. Don't you dare make me lift that cap up. There's nothing there. Like, it's just I don't even exist anymore underneath that. Yes, if you're interested in the sort of people who played at this festival, the movement that were like championed at those festivals, and how much of like folk music shaped a lot of important movements in the States, and the musician alongside it, you'll get your dose of what you want out of this film, because it's essentially moving from year to year, spotlighting a couple of the performances, always telling who it is, and just having them like play a song or like a part of their song. And it is so much fun that like this is something that I just replay just to listen to the recordings of that music, and to maybe see, I didn't know like those musicians, go look them up, listen to more of their music. Like, this feels like such a nice spotlight for Newport, and just for those musicians, and the variety of stuff that was shown there. If you watch A Complete Unknown, I think this is actually a pretty decent, pretty good pairing with it, with like the controversy of Bob Dylan going electric. Like, that is also a large part of this documentary too, like all of that playing out, but then also seeing all of the other acts that surround it, because that movie obviously only focuses on him, on Bob Dylan, and John Bass, a little bit, Johnny Cash, and not much more. But seeing all of these other things that round out this whole festival, I found to be just like a charm. It was a very nice experience, and I liked it a lot. There's not much more to say. Like, if you like that sort of, if this music speaks to you, then
I do.
This movie will be a really pleasant watch for you.
I really want to see it. I mean, I love John Lee Hooker. I love Johnny Cash, Bob Dylan. So yeah, I'll definitely seek it out. Mm-hmm. Hopefully, it'll release somewhere.
Yes, I mean, I see this be something that is just like available on some like free to stream platform at one point.
You know what? This movie is gonna be on cable for a couple of times in 2 years.
I think so as well. Literally on cable still. Yeah, I gave this a 7 out of 10. I saw some people even rank this even higher, because maybe you're like, this speaks to me, like, perfect. I wanted to see this artist I've already
liked. It's a massive vibe.
Yeah, like an experience of a 5 if you like the music and the artists within it. And
Next up, funnily enough, every year we end the festival with a miniseries. That has just always been the way every year. The first year was a 12-episode series, where it was the first 6 on the first day and the last 6 on the last day. So like, it was literally a sandwich. I believe last year it was the Mussolini series we ended on, but we also watched Disclaimer and the Winterberg series, Families Like Ours. And this year it is Il Mostro, Stefano Solima's latest. It is not a movie, however, it is a miniseries that consists of 4 episodes and 4 episodes only, from what I've gathered. And it is about 8 double murders, 17 years of terror, and always the same weapon, a 22 caliber Beretta. And it is one of the longest and most complex Italian investigations into the first and most brutal serial killer in the country's history, the Monster of Florence. The story is based on ongoing legal proceedings and investigations. In a story where there have been many possible monsters over time and investigations, our story focuses on them, the possible monsters, from their point of view, because the monster in the end could be anyone.
Is it you? Is it me? You know who the real monster is, Kevin?
You?
Men.
Men. Us.
Well, just in general. I think this movie, this miniseries, over its 4 episodes, basically presents a different suspect, in each episode, and also tells what has happened differently, and lets us play it out like as if they did it. And it does that a couple of times where I've the first time I thought, oh, this is what happened, that's why they're showing it, but then they recontextualize it every time differently. And I gotta say, the first couple of times it was pretty jarring, because you are taking it as a reality, and I think it's not obvious enough that we are trying to keep it vague enough so no one's actually the person who did it. But with a series like this, you do expect that by the end of it, the last one you end on is likely the one that's the likeliest to do it. And it's also how the series feels a bit. I didn't vibe with this much. I think it was technically well made, it was decently acted most of the time, but it was very much just a Netflix show that is glorifying the violence of a mass murderer and having people fascinated by that, basking in the violence of letting it play out every time, with the different scenarios of how the murder happened. You also see it every time, and I think it's not really adding much to we don't know who this is. It's just a spectacle of a murder and the intrigue of not knowing, and it's just a pretty dark story about a lot of abuse, a lot of murder. Not for me. Not for me at all. I'm definitely not the target audience here. But what did you think?
Well, I'm not the target audience either. For me, this series was fine. I will say I'm a fan of Stefano Sollima, because he has done the sequel to Sicario, which I thought was really solid. He has done another movie, an Italian crime trilogy called ACAB, Subura, and Adagio, where we have seen 2 of them. You fell asleep during Adagio, though. I'll never forget.
Asleepio.
But I think Stefano Sollima is a really solid filmmaker, especially in the crime genre. So that's why when watching Il Mostro, it's hope he pulls it off. And this is obviously it's a miniseries, so he doesn't try to stretch it out. It's more of hey, each episode we're gonna watch it from a different point of view, and sometimes in the beginning that works because it's still quite fresh to you, but by the 3rd and the 4th you're sort of alright, let's just get going. I don't really care about these earlier investigation shit anymore. Let me actually know what happened eventually, and the way they do that is by name dropping an actual suspect at the very last in the end of the very last episode, and it just felt like a fucking Thanos MCU moment, which is at that moment you just totally lose me.
Yeah, it's also it presents the actual murder, because we don't know that part, different every time, but then the interactions it very much plays with that continuity to be consistent. And then the question is, that's the only
interesting part.
Oh, sorry?
That's the most interesting part to me.
That you show the murders being different each time?
Yeah, that you show the murder from different sides, because it's a bit like the movie Father, where we do see his kid dropping off, but then he hasn't. So that's sort of. But
it feels like one part of it is locked in with certain things that are static, that stay the same, which I think wouldn't everything be slightly different if you play into that direction? It's almost like it's you got a multiple choice sort of web film and you can choose. And,
Yeah.
And I didn't. I think that was pretty cheesy. Also, I was wondering what's longer, The Brutalist or this whole 4-part miniseries. And
Which is
by 2 minutes, this one's longer, but that's also the Netflix credits. So I don't know.
Oh yeah.
Skip next.
I mean, to be fair, like we were both surprised at how many people stayed.
So surprised. It was like sold out full, and then yeah.
But also, it's an Italian audience. It was the last film festival day, so at that point, you might as well just stay because there's not really anything else you can go see afterwards. But there was.
No, sorry.
Yeah.
There was an actual murder that happened during a screening.
Really?
Yeah. These are new ones. My headphones, these same ones got killed because I had a monster, Il Mostro. I brought it into the theater. Right, I bought a monster in, and the monster unleashed, and it killed my headphones. All right, I actually got the body. Do you want me to show you the body?
Yeah.
Okay, wait. These are the new ones, right?
I forgot about this. This is a really good bit from him. I must admit. I hate to admit it. This is a good bit.
I don't know if this is like TOS, if we can show this on YouTube, but look at this. They look like they're fine, but they're not. It's now I gotta make sure that I don't mix them up. But the thing is, they still played, but they just turned off all the time. When I turned them on, it turned back off. It felt like they didn't get killed. They just got really sassy, right? So sassy. I was like, I can't deal with this. So I had to buy new ones. But that's the real monster of Florence.
I guess you.
Monster of Florence. He's moved on from Florence to Venice.
It's so funny that it's done by the security guards.
It was, yeah, security guard stepped on the fucking monster. I know who did it. There's not different versions of this.
Imagine doing this murder from 4 different perspectives. You got the security guard.
Someone from like row 1, from row A did it.
You got the projectionist. You got the projectionist.
Well, then also that room sometimes shakes a bit, and then in Giardino sometimes the subtitles go up and down.
Oh, yeah.
So it could have been like, someone who's like fucking with the vibration, so like it's like a tremor that like pokes a hole into my monster energy. So
maybe it's just an earthquake.
I came out of it, and that room, like, it was the last screening, but it must have smelled a bit like monster energy in the next. So I feel sorry, but also it was one of them who like stepped on it, so like I don't feel too bad for it.
But I'm also pretty offended by the fact you put Lachlan at the end in the review section and not Kevin.
Well, you can't be put next to a monster, Kevin. Whoops.
Are we calling Lachlan a monster? Oh, damn.
Okay,
bro.
I thought someone else catching a stray would be something that you say like, thank you.
No, we
there's solidarity between my employees, so maybe I gotta take care of them.
Anyway, Il Mostro, that was, I guess, everything we had to say about it.
Yeah, do you give ratings to like miniseries or Lachlan?
5.5.
5.5. Okay. Out of 5?
Out of 10.
Out of 10. Cool. Good to know. Thank you so much, Lachlan.
How dare you!
Charlie Kaufman had a new film premiere at the Venice Film Festival as well, but not a feature-length film, but a 27-minute long short called How to Shoot a Ghost that starred Jesse Buckley and Joseph Kiki, which sees them kind of wandering the streets as the undead, as ghosts, just looking at people wandering through the streets of Athens. And it says like it's a long ass director statement. I don't know if I bother to read it, but I think it has aspirations to reflect so much, like pulling from so much history from Athens, but also just overall world history. I don't know if I felt any of that, unfortunately, during this movie. The synopsis reads, 2 newly dead young people meet in the streets of Athens amid the pulsing cityscape and the ghosts of history. One, a translator, the other, a photographer. They were outsiders in life. In death, they struggle with the residue of their longings and mistakes. They wander the city together, finding consolation in the difficult beauty of existence and its aftermath. So very poetic sounding, right? You could expect that Charlie Kaufman can nail that. he's made some of the best movies like ever, in my opinion. I know you don't fuck with adaptation. No, with Anomalisa. I'm thinking of ending things, like love to hate the experience of sitting through that. I also think Synecdoche, New York might be a masterpiece. I didn't get anything out of this movie. I was very disappointed because I was looking forward to it quite a bit. Kevin, what did you think?
It sort of left me cold. It's just like
a ghost.
Yeah.
Like a ghostly presence.
But I guess the most interesting aspect for me with this movie is, they're ghosts and they can spot other ghosts, and they sort of have a ghosts from old and new. So, but they don't really do anything with that because there's also barely any dialogue in the actual short, so I really don't have much to say. I was just sitting there, they're wandering around, and before I knew it, the movie ended. Also, is it weird to say that I felt the runtime with a short?
No,
I certainly felt with this one.
I was thinking multiple times. This is 27 minutes, right? Yeah, 27 minutes is half of like 1 hour, right? Yeah, no, yeah, that's 27. 27 times 2 is 54 minutes. Like, that's me during the movie. Like, they really, like, when you say wander the streets, they wander the streets. And there's not much more. And, like, however much he says about it, like, underscoring how the now will become the then, and how those of us living today become the ghosts of tomorrow. I was like, true. But also, what does that have to do with like this movie? I didn't get that sort of. I think it was trying to be maybe poetic a bit, like.
Oh yeah, I can definitely see that attempt.
Like,
it's just the attempt failed.
Yeah, I also don't think that like Jessie Buckley was giving anything here to do much with. This is not at all like her fault. I think it's just like. Also, Charlie Kaufman, he was just trying for something that just didn't work. I don't think just like, makes me think less of him as a filmmaker. It is very experimental. So, you win some, you lose some.
Where is it going to release?
I do not know with the short films.
Because, this feels like a Netflix short film in the sense of like, hey, we need a short film from a pretty esteemed filmmaker to be nominated for an Academy Award, and maybe because they'll win because they're such an esteemed filmmaker.
Yeah, no, I mean this wouldn't be even close to, I think, any sort of Oscar conversation ever.
Oh,
I don't see.
Same, but like it still could be a thing,
For it to be on Netflix,
I'm not even giving this one a rating. I just can't be honest.
I gave it a 5 out of 10. There were also 2 other films short films that played. They were, I think, both like dead on like 20 minutes or something like that each. Yeah, and one of them was called Goffredo Felicimoso, which was from Franco Maresco, who also had Bravo Bene play in the actual competition, the movie that was the lowest rated out of all of those films, because we didn't get it because it was specifically about like Italian cinema. And this one was like prefaced with the thing is like that it's an ongoing movie that he's doing, and this is just 20 minutes of that feature that he will like later release. And I think it's about a really important journalist, I believe, like someone who talked about movies a lot. So it's like very like an important figure in cultural discussion in Italy. I just obviously didn't know him, and then it was like mildly interesting, but the sort of presentation didn't do. Like, this was like a sizzle reel 20-minute long for an upcoming documentary. It's like, what the fuck is happening? Like, that's so weird.
Like, this didn't feel like it belonged at Venice Film Festival. Like, this feels like it belonged at like an industry screening for potential investors. And I guess they just put it in front of the Kaufman short so more people could watch it, but...
Exactly.
Fuck this, bro.
Also, what I didn't mention is that all of these free films use some sort of mixed media, but I didn't mention with How to Choose a Ghost because the photographer does like the photographic part that the play is into. Yeah. Honestly, I forgot all about it. I just remembered that all 3 of them like break the sort of presentation. So
I mean, the next one we are going to talk about is the most memorable one.
Yeah, Boomerang Atomic, which was about like in 1960 in the heart of the Saharan desert, France detonated its first atomic bomb in Regane, Algeria, forever altering the surrounding land and lives. The invisible populations continue to suffer its fallout in silence. And I mean, pair that up with the indifference that the lead has in The Stranger, L'étranger. This would be an interesting pairing to sort of have the ongoing horrors of the French colonial apparatus that is not concerned about the people in Algeria. This was interesting. Like, I thought this was like, this is informative. I didn't know about this. I feel good knowing it now. It didn't stand out to me in like how it went about telling that story in like a short film form, but I mean, it was all right.
I feel like this is a piece that belongs in a museum, in a museum about this topic, maybe in France, maybe in Algeria himself. But it was memorable. The footage that they show, you can definitely feel it. I mean, you can feel some background. You can feel something tangible in these 20 minutes. With the other two shorts, I couldn't at all. So, like, I'll rate this a 6 out of 10 just because it makes me at least feel something compared to the other shorts. So
I like this.
I'm happy I know this information now.
I agree. I think even speaking of that in a museum, yes, good place for it. I think just like also publishing, especially shorts on YouTube or on Vimeo for everyone to see. This is a nice educational thing to have out there.
It can literally be posted to TikTok fully.
Yes, like I told you, there's the 30-minute limit on TikTok.
I mean, nobody does it, but it can. It is
they
possible.
Could just publish it there. Yeah. Would it then be, if they submitted it to the Oscars, would it then be a Chinese distributed movie? Because it's going for the TikTok.
It's not gonna, bro. It's not gonna.
Okay, I like this the most out of in this short film block out of the three. But for me, these kind of all are like 5 out of 10 straight in the middle.
So it's not really the best then, is it?
Well, it's the best among the mid.
Give it at least a 5.1 or something.
I'll give it a
like
5.01. No, I'll give it a 5.5. You know, I'm feeling good. Just do it. just do it.
Both turned Italian. And next up, we have an Italian director. No, I'm kidding. It's about an Italian director though, but it is Megadoc. Mike Figgis is making a behind-the-scenes documentary about the making of Francis Ford Coppola's Megalopolis. You know, it is starring a bunch of the cast of Megalopolis. We got Dustin Hoffman, Adam Driver, Giancarlo Esposito, you got Shia LaBeouf, but you also have a couple of other people that pop up in here. You got George Lucas, and that's about it.
Robert De Niro's named as well. I don't remember when Robert De Niro pops up in this documentary.
Yeah, me neither. But it essentially is the behind-the-scenes documentary of Megalopolis that sort of belongs on the Blu-ray, if anything. But Mike Figgis adds a sort of personal touch to it because he's witnessing this production from his own perspective.
As a filmmaker himself, right? Yeah.
As a filmmaker himself as well. And he was sort of hesitant to do it because he hasn't really watched any other director work, he said. So it would really be a new world to him. And what way to start that process with Megalopolis, am I right?
That's crazy. I mean, this had a lot to offer. I'm just waiting for like Gigadoc and Terradoc. I think there's the inevitable sequels that Francis Ford Coppola has to do at some point. No, that was a bad joke. I know, but I won't take it back and I won't cut it out because that's what they do in Megalopolis as well. It's just all like it's so fucking horrible. I fucking hated Megalopolis. Like, it's a half star to me. So I was so intrigued to like see what the fuck happened on set. And it's so funny to like see some of the optimism turn into like it's just damage control. It's like so funny that like no one has an actual like there's one moment where Dustin Hoffman is like the only reason why he's like in it is because Khan is still like has passed away since James Caan has passed away, yeah. So that's why like there's a spot that's open for him. And then like it's funny because he says something about like not knowing what the role is, and yeah. I think that like he doesn't even know, and his character doesn't know, or like no one knows what the fuck is going on essentially. And Giancarlo Esposito just being knowing there's this one moment where like he's a bit more direct, and I think he doesn't know that the camera is there, or like he's not, like, but he just wants to get back on track. And it's such an energy of like a teacher who's like too fed up of like letting people speak, and then he's like holding it back in. It was like, okay, let's get back on track, all right? And he's like the voice of reason, and he's like being him. I was like, yes, he is the voice of reason. Because if you turn to fucking Francis Ford Coppola, then you got someone who's like, oh no, I'm just jovial. I just want to be here. Movie making is about having fun, because I've had the fame, I've had the money. Now it's about spending all of the money and getting nothing in return for some stupid vision that like doesn't make any sense, and fighting with Shia LaBeouf and hating him.
Yeah, I was about to mention that. I mean, most people have called the documentary Shia versus Francis, which, to be fair, I don't know how long Megadoc actually is. Let me quickly look. So Megadoc is 107 minutes. I would truly say about 20 minutes of this movie is Shia versus Francis,
if not more,
or like at least 15 minutes. Yeah,
it feels like it takes up
so
most
funny.
of the movie.
Yeah, and it's so funny because at one point Shia actually goes to Francis like, this is reality to me, and it's like, and for Francis in his own movie, it's like, it's not, bro.
You gotta. Well, there's also like one scene where one of his scene partners is incredibly fed up with Shia, because I think he like actually hits him or like gets too close, and and you like the awkwardness that he captures. I also think it's interesting that Mike Figgis talks about like, if you make a documentary about a film, it's only interesting if it's a disaster, right? That's why Heart of Darkness is so interesting.
I mean, he literally says at the moment, when you are making a documentary, I mean, every documentary filmmaker is like licking his fingers when drama happens, right? Because you want conflict in your documentary. But I think Mike Figgis had enough.
I mean, there's more than enough. It feels like at the end of this, it feels so lukewarm in what he actually puts into it and how much he comments on. It feels like he's like taking a step back and is like, Pierre suffered enough. This is enough.
I mean, the movie literally ends at the Cannes Film Festival premiere, because it's like, hey, but look, it was all worth it because it premiered at Cannes.
To me, that was pretty laughable.
And it says nothing about its reception or anything. It's just
it ends pretty abruptly. Yeah, it ends pretty much like out of nowhere. I loved Aubrey Plaza in this. She was so funny.
Because she's so dry.
Yeah, but it's a character, right? It's like you think it's a character when you see her, but then like, because she can deliver it the same, and it seems like it's definitely part of her personality, but obviously like something that she emphasizes a bit more in certain moments. But like when she's on the Zoom call with Francis, it is like I thought it was so hilarious.
Those Zoom calls.
It was so funny. And then also on set,
and now do it like a doc that is, or something.
Seeing his direction as well felt like he's such a director of a long lost time of stuff where he feels like it's the survival bias of, because he has made some of the greatest films of all time.
I mean, even the rehearsals.
His rehearsals felt so, it felt like so. And you can see the sort of slight awkwardness of, we are in the presence of someone who's made great films. Let's see how this process is like and how I'm going to be a part of it. And I was like, oof, you guys are in for... And then Adam Driver feels like he's committed to the vision and he's just going to do it. And there's also another thing in this documentary where Mike Figgis talks about like that he heard that Adam Driver doesn't like to be filmed, so he's not filming him. And then they had the conversation of like, oh no, you can actually, talk to me as well. But that I was wondering, like, Adam Driver is not in this movie for like half of it at all, and then barely anything with him in there. And I don't know, I also like there's a discussion that they have with, I think Dustin Hoffman at one point says like, oh, you are in my eye line as well. And then sort of I think Francis claps back, is like, you just gotta take it in, we are all a part of this, which I find really weird. Like if you're on someone's eye line, if you ever acted in anything, if you have someone in your eye line and you're acting, it's like so distracting. So for him to say like, oh, this is all just like a bit of fun, also by comparison saying like interacting with Shia LaBeouf was the worst he's ever had to interact with anyone, and then he's like, and Shia goes like, really, anyone? Someone who quits, someone who's like so overweight for the role and just like leaves as well. I was like, damn, that's on point to come back.
Hell, even about the damage control, like even the VFX team that gets fired halfway through, right? My God.
He was basically like, I don't want you guys to do anything because everything we capture is supposed to be in camera and already how I see it because only I can see it and no one else can like capture that. I was like, bro, you just got to make like a movie in your bedroom for like 30 years. That's what you're doing. This is like, if you want to have a jovial like place with everyone.
Like this utopian city that he's envisioning.
Communication is not there for this. Like you see him communicating and it's just doesn't feel like that's what's and like he says like it's also by far his like biggest movie ever when it comes to the sets and everything. And when you see the on location shooting, I don't know if it felt a bit lackluster even there, but I mean I also don't know,
and it's mind-boggling the numbers they show of the budget, like makeup budget.
I also think that like the
location.
producer that they interview is so funny too, because she comes in before the project starts and she's like, oh yeah, there's a couple of things, you know, we obviously optimistic in that like producer role of like getting stuff done and, you know, optimistic about the budget. And I believe the last movie she did was like Guardians 3 or something like that, right? Or something.
Oh yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, yeah.
And then like he just has like she catches a stray from someone, oh yeah, no, someone who budgets too much for something. It was like, well, maybe it has to do with what you want the movie to be, that like it's budgeted at the stuff that you're demanding of everything being practical. And like and then it boggles my mind if you look at Megalopolis how shitty that movie looks. It looks so bad. And I think the cinematographer they also talk to like I found this to me be not really saying much as a documentary. I just found it really entertaining. I don't think it was a great documentary, but like it was really entertaining.
I think my figures really must have been that dog in the fire apartment building. Like, this is fine. It really is. Just that. Oh man. It's entertaining as hell. I gave it a 6 out of 10 as well. But in terms of an insightful documentary, because even one of the actors says like, oh, Francis Ford Coppola is so energized. And you just see him being frustrated all the time. It's like,
it feels very much in like something that Francis wouldn't mind to be put out there. It feels like an extension of a promotion for this film. Like, for example, we also celebrate Eleanor Coppola, who unfortunately also passed away in the year that it was supposed to premiere. Like, it premiered in Cannes in 2024, and I believe she passed away at the end of 2023 or early 2024. And it's like a celebration of their marriage, or I don't know if it's a birthday or anniversary that they celebrate, and that was pretty sweet. But it felt like, obviously, that doesn't fit into the documentary of a megadoc. That's just what he wants it to be. He wants it to be a celebration of his life and people around him. And that is, like, you know, I think a noble endeavor. But it doesn't make for, like, it kind of is in contradiction with trying to make your magnum opus, your masterpiece. He feels like he's not up for it. And also he has like tantrum things where he just like walks out of the room and he says like, oh yeah, that's my way of dealing with it. I was like, are you fucking 5 years old, man?
Oh yeah, he's a goldfish, right?
Yeah, it's like,
I think it's called a silverfish.
So funny. I mean, I probably would do the same if I had to interact with Shia LaBeouf all the time, but also in a lot of ways I understood where he was coming from. I was like, yeah, give me more. And like the inputs he had, he's like an intense person to deal with, but
absolutely,
yeah. 6 out of 10 for me as well.
6 out of 10, yeah.
But I can't talk anymore. That wraps it up for all of our coverage of the out of competition section. Again, if you're interested in the rest, you'll find Horizonte, Spotlight, all of those, the smaller things. This is actually another short film that we'll talk about that was shown before another film. You'll find that in a different recap, as well as our actual recap of the full festival, our jury grid, yada yada. Venice. Thank you. Send us accreditation again. We will watch about 75 movies again next year, and it was a lot of fun. And what else? Subscribe, leave a like, share,
peace, like, subscribe, comment.
What's your most anticipated?
What should they say if they watch the entire thing? Should they write? Should they comment?
Comment. No, then it seems like a bot. The comment.
Megadoc.
Mega.
No, comment Shia versus Francis.
Yes, that's a good comment. I like that.
Yeah, Shia versus Francis.
And then the people who like PR during Megadop like type in that it, like why is Shia versus Francis trending?
Like an email that comes in. Anyway, watch the Horizonte and other Venice videos. We see you next time. Peace.
Wait! Stop scrolling! Watch this.